Roku now as well.
Microphone at the nose does not do much good.
All right, so I'm waiting for the little green light to show up on Yoo-hoo. On Yoo-hoo, yeah. Yoo-hoo, Yoo-hoo. Okay.
There's something from 30 years ago.
Yes, all right, so we are live on YouTube. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, CocoTALK, episode 67 is going live in 3, 2. This is CocoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. Streaming live on YouTube and Roku, available as a podcast and enjoyed the world over. And now, here's your host. All right, everybody, welcome to CocoTALK episode 67. The fun never starts, but we are here. And we are live. We'll do it live. And we're going to do it live right here on CocoTALK episode 67. The main focus, the thrust, if you will, of today's show is going to be to cover the Coco Pi project. But before we do that, we will go around the room and introduce who's with us on our panel today. We also have a couple of announcements, some special revelations to make here as well. We are on a new communications platform. We said, screw you, Skype, after your most recent update. So we have found a nice Skype alternative. So with us on the program today in Canada, we have Curtis Boyle. Welcome, Curtis.
Hello, everyone. And I just thought I'd mention as a little bit of an aside, too, Ars Technica, one of the guys there reviewed the new Skype and quite liked it. So.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah. So apparently brain damage is contagious. And
yes.
Must be a millennial.
No, he's actually an older guy, Peter Bright.
Yes. All right, we also have with us a very special guest on the show today, Mr. Ron Klein. Hello, Ron.
Hello, everybody.
We have Mr. Question of the Week, Mr. Grant Leedy's with us. Hey, Grant.
Hello, everybody.
First time to the live show, we have Mark. Is it Coulian, Mark?
Yes, yes.
Mark Coulian's with us. Welcome to the program, Mark.
Yeah. So I'm out here in Tacoma, Washington on the left coast, and it's still morning.
All right, well, good morning to you. And it wouldn't be an episode of CocoTALK without the Timberman himself. We're glad he's back to bring balance to the universe. Mr. Ron Delvo is with us.
How you doing? How you doing?
We're doing good. From sunny Southern California, creator of Audio Spectrum Analyzer, it's Mr. Steve Bjork is with us.
I'm just happy you don't say that. Trying to come up with a few other things.
Yes. And I got to get more familiar with Terry Steen's library, so for the time being, he's just going to be that guy who made Balloon Fire. But it's Terry Steen. The Balloon Fire guy. Welcome, Terry Steen.
Popular amongst all the 7-year-olds.
Yes. From South America, we've got cousin of Dora the Explorer. It's Go Diego Go. Welcome, Diego.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful. We have one of the Angry Muppets is with us here, Richard Lorbieski of Boyson Technology. That's a picture of him and Jim Brain together. So,
still doing my community service, and unfortunately, I didn't get any credit last week.
Bummer. You got to talk to your probation officer for that.
Yeah.
And our resident ink blot, we have Mr. James Diffendaffers with us. Hello, James.
Hello.
All right, so we're here. We're live. We're on the air. We have with us in the live chat right now, Tim Fadden was here almost 15 minutes early saying anticipation. And then Ken Reichert saying, it's making me wait. Right? It's a great song, great commercial for Heinz Ketchup. Yes, Disney Saints fan too saying, it's keeping me waiting. And Tim Fadden says, lights are on, but nobody's home. Diego says, we're almost ready. Tim Franklin says, you're probably eating Coco Pi. And Bruce Moore is here. Bruce Moore is here, and he says that our Zoom is looking good. Excellent. So we're caught up on the live chat. We're here. We do have a couple of things to show off today. As I mentioned before, the main presentation today, the topic is going to be showing off their latest update to the Coco Pi. But I believe we might have a project update or two. I know for a fact Richard Lorbieski does, but does anybody else, before we get to Richard, have anything they worked on this week or came across this week they wanted to share? A little show and tell moment here.
I just did my was it Retro Bright last week, but I didn't talk about it, so it's
Okay.
no big deal unless anybody wants to hear about Retro Bright.
Yeah. Well, you can show it up and show us a picture if you want.
Yeah,
You got
you'll teach me how to do screen share on this one now.
Or you don't have it in the room with you? You can just hold it up to the camera.
No, I don't have it with me.
Okay.
I posted it on Discord.
Okay, well, we'll find it. We'll pull up Discord later. We'll look at your retro bike. All right, Tom C is here. Tom C from Jersey. All right, excellent. All right, so we got one Retro Bright update. Diego, it was, I think, episode 65 when we talked about the core dump and we looked at your furious felines and some of your flickering. Have you made any progress on the feline flickering?
Yeah. I got some help around, and I think that the game it's almost ready. It's looking a bit better. Of course, being basic, it can't be perfect, but it's looking better. I spent the last couple of days playing over and over all the levels to make sure that you can win in any condition.
Okay.
And trying to write some cheat sheets for people that can make it.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I think it's almost there.
Excellent.
Stevie needs those.
I need the cheat codes. I need the infinite live hack for the game. Just tell me what to poke, right? So, Nick Marenti's just joined us again. G'day, Nick.
Yeah, g'day. I finally got my picture up on the screen.
Got your picture up, yeah.
Laugh at.
Yeah, 1980s never looked so good. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I might argue that, but
yeah. That picture was taken before the ice caps melted. That's how old it is, right? So
that's right. Yeah, exactly. That's before the scarring.
Oh,
excellent. So I know we have an update from you on your Gunstar Chapter 6. Is that something you want to just tell us now in the update section, or should we mention that a little bit later on in the show?
If you want, yeah.
All right.
We can put it in the that other segment. Core
dump.
The
core dump. And I gotta find the sound effect for that. Hold on. I can't find my dump sound. We'll find a dump sound. All right, so we'll do that during core dump. Excellent. All right, then I believe. Let me see if I can just find the dump. Nope. That's not the dump. Is this the dump? There we go. There's the core dump. Okay, so we'll save that for the proper part of the show. Okay, so I think then. Hello, Nick Marotta has just joined us, and so I think what we're going to do right now is, without any further ado, where did what's his face go? Richard Lorbieski. Richard, you have the floor, so why don't you share with us your project update and your announcement, the whole 9 yards.
Okay. Someone is sharing their screen. I can't.
Oh, okay. I need to stop sharing system sound. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, a few weeks ago, I showed you guys a prototype of the final production of my Boomerang 2 meg. I have now since got the new boards in, and I had started production, and I also renamed it the Boomerang E2. This is a 2 meg version of the Boomerang. What you're seeing here is a picture of the 2 meg board, which is this right here. It's Boomerang.
Yeah.
And in order for the 2 meg to be recognized, you need a addressing or MMU, and so you need that on the CPU. So this is it right here, and you have a wire connecting to the two together. So this is what it is. It is the announcement that the Boomerang E2 is ready to ship. I will have the listing on my website later on today or early Sunday morning to where you can order these.
Okay.
And they will ship on Monday.
Oh, excellent. And that's Boyson Technologies, right? Boyson Tech.
Yeah, boyson.com.
Yeah.
And this is the bottom side of the memory board itself.
Okay.
I'm using CPLD. That's why it's very, very small.
Which one's the actual memory chip? I only really see 2 chips on there.
Yeah, this one right here.
Okay, the rectangular one is the memory chip,
Right.
and then the square one.
The square one, that is the CPLD.
Okay. Okay, and then the and this is the CPU.
This is the bottom of the CPU. And this one here is this is installed. As you can see how very small and compact. The memory board itself is the same size as the Boomerang 512.
Okay.
And the only difference is you just have the CPU right here, plugs in. You're going to need a socketed CPU
right.
and for it to work. And basically what you do is you socket your CPU, and when you install your memory board, it's just like installing a 512K board. And you have to remove the two little caps here, and it's here. They're not pictured, and you install it, and then just run this wire, turn it on, and you're ready to go.
What are the other two things for?
What, these two right here?
No, the 2 pins to the right of where your connector is.
Right.
Oh, that is
bank
that is a disable jumper. You don't really have to use it at all. There are certain Sierra games that do not work with 2 meg at all. Yeah, with 2 meg, and they only work with 512. So if you jumper this, it disables the 2 meg board. Just makes it a 512.
Oh.
Now, can that be done while the system's running, or do you have to cold boot it?
No, you have to turn it off.
Okay.
I should mention those have been patched. So if you get the versions on the repository, the Robert Galt patch, they will work with 2 meg. But the original stock ones, if you have the original discs,
right,
they will screw up on 2 megs.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, this is something you probably won't even have to use at all. And another way you can do it is just remove this wire here, and then it'll recognize it as a 512. This board right here, if you just plug it in all by itself, the CoCo recognizes as 512.
So you could run a switch to that to the top of your computer if you wanted to.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But you'd have to turn it off.
Right. And
gotta be down cold.
And this is in Nitrous 9. You can see that it's 2 meg. And then I also have the stress test, RAM stress test. You can see that it's at 2 meg as well. And let's see. Let me go to. Yeah, you could barely see the top side. I forgot to get a photograph. But this CPU also has, I call it the Guardian Plus. This also has the buffer protection built into the board to protect your CPU. I honestly, it's a feature that a lot of people have demanded or want, so I just went ahead and just put it in there. It was a pretty simple thing to put in there. So
now, do we have to go to a financing department for this item?
For you, yes, absolutely. There's 3 options that you can use. You could buy. Now, the people that have bought the Boomerang 512K board from me, you will get notified via the email, but you will get a E2 board free of charge. Your 512 will be replaced. I'm not going to make those. I'm not going to support them. So basically, those ones that I've sold are going to get replaced free of charge. And if you want to take advantage of the 2 meg, you have the option to buy this Guardian Plus board for $29 with free shipping. Now, if you want to buy these two together, actually each one of these, this and the CPU board, are $29 each. But if you buy them together, they're $49.
Wow! So let me make sure I heard that correctly. So for $50, you're going to get 2 megabytes and a CPU protector, or a Guardian, if you will, CPU Guardian, right?
Yes.
For $50.
Correct.
That's freaking amazing.
Yes.
That's super cheap.
Now, my next question is, if you don't have the soldering skills to resocket the CPU yourself, how much do you charge somebody sends in their CoCo 3 for you to do the actual upgrade?
Okay, I actually have a couple of ways to do it. Normally, I charge $30, and with shipping, I will do it for $50, and I will also replace the capacitors, the electrolytic capacitors.
Now that's if you just send
the PC board, not the entire case,
Correct.
power supply, and like that.
Right. Yeah. Most people, what they do is they take it out of their machine, and they send me the board, and they put it into it fits into a priority mail medium box, which runs about $16 shipping. That $50 also includes me shipping it back. I don't charge extra for that.
Okay.
So yeah, we can do it that way. If you don't feel confident enough to replace your own CPU. Now, if it's already has a socket, now some of them do. All you have to do is just take the chip out, put this board in, and put your old CPU in here, and you're good to go.
Yeah. I would take an educated guess that say most of the people who would want 2 megs are probably Nitrous 9 users that probably already have a 6309, so they're already socketed. So I would guess that 90% of your target audience is ready to snap this into place with next to no additional modifications.
Correct.
Of course, that's the other thing I should bring up is since you're now got a socket CPU, why not get a 6309 from? Don't you sell them?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Value added service. If you don't already have that, you can get a 6309 as well.
And there's free software to support it. And
right.
I got a question.
Okay.
Can you use that protector on a Coco 2?
No.
And by the way, it's called a Guardian. We have to be careful we don't do trademark infringements here. It's actually called a Guardian.
Honestly, I have not tried it out. Most of my testing has been on the Coco 3, and I honestly couldn't tell you if it works or not.
Well, the last thing you got to come out with is the optional switch to disable the extra memory.
Right.
Well, that'll be Jason's job. Jason will come up with the switcheroo for the Boomerang E2. So got to support the secondary market. So
it won't be called switcheroo; it'll call memory U.
Switch a mem or something.
Yeah. For the memory for that jumper, I have that dual CPU board. I just ran a set of wires outside the case, real small, with the jumper, just so I wouldn't have to open up the case to switch between a 6809 and 6309. That could be used for this as long as you power it down before you do that.
Right. Yeah, and again, I would say 99.99% of the time you're not even going to have to even worry about it. So.
Just in, but David Ladd sent a message out in the live chat. It says, "Hello all, I'm at Pond Lake in Nebraska." So hello to David Ladd. Hello. All right, David's with us.
And
was that a TTL broadcast?
TTL.
Yeah. DriveWire. How did you find
out?
Oh
yeah, DriveWire. Now I didn't have enough time to show off another little feature that this CPU can also do. There's a lot of people that have the Triad 512K boards. This CPU board with the Triad, with a little bit of modification on the 512, can turn it into a 1 meg.
Say that part again now. You're talking about your CPU, your CPU part, the one that's on the right-hand side of the screen. This is what's
Guardian,
need.
Yeah, the Guardian Plus.
Okay.
If you just buy the Guardian, let's say you already have a 512K board.
Okay.
From Cloud9.
Okay.
You could buy my Guardian Plus board, and with you have to modify the 512, the Triad board, but you can turn that into a 1 meg board.
So he's got 1 meg of RAM already on the boards.
Yes, yes, it is.
How extensive is the modification required?
You have to lift up 2 pins on either chip, either RAM SRAM chip. Pin number 1, they have to be lifted up. I'm not a big fan of cutting traces, but you just lift that pin up and solder a wire to both of them, and then you run a wire from that all the way to this pin right here, the first pin of the bank select.
Would you be providing like a diagram on how somebody could do that?
Right. I'm going to have that
sheet.
post. Yeah, I'll have that posted probably by Monday.
Okay, so this would be is for somebody who already has a 512K upgrade. This would be an inexpensive add-on for them to double that to 1 meg.
Correct.
So they're going
If
to
they have
double
the triad board, not the other.
They have the triad board.
Correct.
Yeah. But if you're getting in there and doing all this work, you might as well go to 2 megs.
Right.
Right.
With
Right, but there's some people that have multiple Cocos, and they say,
Oh yeah. So, I mean, I think.
It's kind of reminds me of the 64K for free back in the Coco 1-2 days when we found out that Tandy was putting 64K chips and only enabling 32. This is like you get 512K for free because you have a 512K board and you're getting 1 meg.
Right.
That's pretty impressive. All right. So this is now available. It'll be able to be received through the Boyson Tech website. People can place their order. You can buy both pieces together for $49. The 2 meg board and the memory CPU controller / Guardian. $49, great deal. If somebody just wants the memory, they could buy the Boomerang by itself without the CPU interface, and then at that point it's just a 512K upgrade.
Correct.
And at that's $29.
Correct.
Which is dirt cheap. You also had mentioned if anybody had previously purchased the 512K version of your Boomerang, the original Boomerang, they will get a free upgrade to the 2 meg. You're just going to swap them out?
Right. That you will be notified, and I will ship that out. And also, you have the option of buying the Guardian Plus for $29, and with free shipping.
Free shipping. Now, is there a promo code that they could use possibly to get that free shipping?
No, this is the people that just own the 512.
Oh, okay.
I was joking around with you when I said, code Rage Quit, but
yeah. So use the promo code Rage Quit at checkout for free shipping. So,
no.
So and we'll add $30 to the price to cover Steve's mental health problem.
If there's a future upgrade to like a gigabyte or something, this will be the same support system.
No, I don't plan to do that. The thing is, I just there was a lot of people that had purchased the Boomerangs, the 512s, right before I had my prototype finalized, and I just didn't want to oh, by the way, I got this now, and they say, wait a minute, why didn't you tell me? No. So that's why I'm doing the switching for free.
Hey there, Ron. A gigabyte of RAM? Come on, get real.
No, I'm just, come on.
Ken Reichert says 1.21 gigabytes.
And that's what I said. I said gigabyte, not megabyte.
Yeah, he said gigabyte. That's what I'm saying. Come on.
And what are you going to do with the 512 boards that you'll be replacing for 1 meg ones when you get them?
They can make them into party favors as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, you're not taking them back. I'm
not taking them back. No.
Oh, so you're going to be just a free replacement. So they could hold on to that and upgrade another Coco 3.
Yeah. Well, if they want to, but I'm not going to support it at all. If it breaks, too bad.
Right. But it's a bonus RAM upgrade for them.
Yeah, if they want it, that's fine.
Gee, at the Coco Fest, I should have bought 100 of the original Boomerang. I could put you out of this.
If only we knew.
Yeah.
If only we could go back in time.
Yeah.
That's
nice awesome.
There.
That is.
I've been developing this for a little over 2 months, and like I said, I kept it very, very close. Very few people knew about this. I had the help with an ex-Tandy engineer with the CPLD, because I'm not a CPLD programmer at all.
Cool.
So can the original Boomerang be modified like the Triad to get 1 meg?
No.
Because it had exactly the amount of memory it needed. There was no bonus RAM on there, huh?
Well, it's not really equipped to handle more memory.
Can I ask you a question as a software engineer?
Sure.
Are you going to make the specifications on accessing the extra RAM beyond the 512K available on your website?
Yes, I will. It'll probably be tomorrow.
Okay. No, it's super rushed since I don't have one yet.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. If you had the Triad 512, yeah, I'll have instructions, but I'll warn you that I'm not sure if the original manufacturer will support that that modification or warranty it, or give his blessing. So it's basically do it at your own risk.
Yeah, I'm just more or less interested in your board and getting to 2 megs.
Right.
Now this board works with disk access, no problem.
Yeah, no problems at all.
Okay, and then SDC too.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it just.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the Nitrous 9 is naturally works natively in 2 meg. So.
Well, see, one of the things I'm looking at right now is I'm working on a project, and if I've got more RAM than 512, I can have more samples in RAM for audio.
Correct.
Nice. So that's cool. That's very cool. So basically, this will work with RS-DOS, and the only things that it won't work out of the box would be the original Sierra games written for OS 9 level. Was that level 1, the original Sierra games?
Nope, level 2.
Oh, they were level 2? Okay. That's right, because they were 16 color. All right. So the original Sierra games that have not been patched would not work on this, but if you've got the updated patch Sierra games, they will work. So there's very few things that won't work on this.
There was 1 or 2 demos back in the day that didn't work, like Sockmaster's original versions of some of his demos didn't work with it because he didn't have anything past 512 himself, but he's patched those too, so I don't think anything else.
Okay. So this is pretty much a no-brainer to do if you've got a Coco 3 that doesn't already have 512. And so here's me. I'm going to use me as an example. I've got 2 Coco 3s. I'm not bragging, just saying. But I've got 2 Coco 3s, and both of them have 512K RAM that are old-school RAM boards. One of them is a very old Cloud 9 upgrade that's got little SIM chips that snapped into it, like the old PC motherboard RAM that snapped into the PCB. So one of those is that, and I think the other one is a disto RAM update. So even though I've got 512K RAM and nothing's broken, if I got just one of these, if I didn't want the 2 megs, I could still buy the Boomerang, put it in here, and the advantage is, kind of like the 6309, is it's lower power consumption and it runs cooler on your Coco, right?
Right.
All right,
Especially from the disto one, because that's like a 16 chip board.
Yeah, so that might be a thing to do. No, that's cool, and the design is pretty neat.
And you can also eBay your old ones.
Yeah, I would probably just want to keep them and put them on a shelf because they are somewhat, old oddities, historic, Coco 3 RAM upgrades.
Right. Yeah. You just all you have to do is just replace the boards since they have already been the 2 capacitors for the CAS and RAS lines
already cut,
been removed. So all you have to do is just replace the board.
Mm-hmm.
And if your CPU is already socketed, all you have to do is just take the CPU out, put it into this board here,
right,
and plug it in, hook up this wire. This wire, it doesn't matter. It's not polarized or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, I noticed the pins on that board are short compared to my older 512K upgrade board. They still fit in okay and everything?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I like about how Richard makes his cables is everything is measured out so precisely, because I've got Richard's SCART cable and how the RGB feed goes to the bottom of the belly of the Coco and kind of snakes through the molding. It's like the perfect length where it just fits everything just right. So, yeah Richard's cables are like spec.
Yes. Yeah, and this was a spec cable. The reason why I use the lower pins, Ron, is in the future, I know that Ed Snyder is coming out with the Gimme X, and this is why I also put these pins on the bottom part of the board, is because this Gimme X is going to reach out past my CPU. It's going to be on top and along also with the memory board. So I had to make it as low as possible so the Gimme X will actually fit on top.
So you're thinking of future stuff.
Yes.
Well, that's because Richard's a perfectionist.
Right. So yeah, Ed sent me pictures of his Gimme X, and I just wanted to make sure that mine would actually
be compatible with it. Yeah.
Well, so it would play nice, and not you'd have to cut anything or make any mods or anything physical modifications.
Are these boards made in the US of A?
No.
No.
Nothing's made in the USA.
It's designed in the USA.
It's designed, but no.
Making PC boards in the USA is about 4 times more expensive.
At least.
If not more, yeah.
And that's including overseas shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Good job, Richard. Good job.
Yeah, you got a customer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
I'll have the link hopefully later on today because I have to head out pretty soon, and but I'll have the link to where all you have to do is you click on it, fill in your credit card information. It's all automated, and it'll be shipped out on Monday.
Cool. Very cool. There you go. World premiere, people.
Yep.
You've seen it here first. You've heard the news. Rick Adams has joined us. Welcome, Rick. How are you? You're still muted, just so you know. Terry
Hello.
Steen is muted. Hey, Rick.
Hello. Hiya. I'm late, as usual.
That's okay. You're here.
Okay.
Did you catch the 2 meg upgrade stuff there, Rick?
I think so, yeah.
Richard Lorbieski, Tim Fadden in the live chat is asking, can you pay via PayPal?
Yes, I do accept PayPal and all major credit cards.
All major credit cards, just no minor credit cards. So.
Well, I mean, I could take Diners Club. No, seriously,
I was going to ask about Diners Club.
Yeah, I can take that. Was it JCB? I can take that as well.
Does anybody have a Diners Club anymore? That's really retro.
You're going full retro. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so that's our big announcement so far. Now, Rick Adams, did you have any project updates that you wanted to fill us in on? Anything you've been working on this week?
No, I'm sorry. Same old, same old.
Okay.
I've sent out the unfinished game as it is to a couple of people, and they have been so busy they haven't even looked at it yet. So,
Oh, I'll make time for you if you send me a copy.
Oh, that's right. I got to send that to you. Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Very cool. Excellent. And we're going to talk about Nick's Gunstar update in a little bit. So I do have I think a short project update. I just could show you guys the latest tweaks I did to Cosmic Aliens. I recorded the video that I'm not going to post to YouTube yet, so it'll be a world premiere here. Just my update 16 on Cosmic Aliens with some minor tweaks. You guys want to see that, and then we'll take a break?
Sure.
That work? Okay, so let me make sure. Oh, I have to go back to. I think I have to turn on. Where did you guys go? How do I get back to the call?
Hello?
How do I get back to the call now? Where are you guys? Back to meeting. Here we go.
Panel,
yeah.
Mute your microphones because it will grab the screen away from what Stevie's doing.
Okay, so here we go.
Don't they have to unshare when they get done with their side?
Yeah, everybody needs to unshare, but then I need to remember to turn my sound back on. Okay, my sound sharing is back on. Tell me if you guys can hear the flush.
Yep.
You guys hear the flush. Okay. All right. Yes. So I'm going to minimize you. And here's the latest update to Coco Cosmic Aliens. Hey guys, Stevie Stroh here with a quick update on the latest build of my Cosmic Aliens, which is now going on about a week old. I did a little bit more tweaks to it this morning. Today is the 20th or 21st, I don't remember. And the last time I made these changes was on the 13th of July. And so this is work in progress .16. And so let's look at what's new and exciting in this version. It's all subtle, it's all mostly tuning. But one nice thing that you'll see here in just a second is the fact that I fixed my exclamation point. So the exclamation point is there and it works. And so I want to show you a couple of things here that have been tweaked. Number one, you're going to see that the aliens can go all the way as high as the top line now, where before I had limited them to one line lower. And this just had to do with where my shots could be placed on the screen and where I could still be able to erase the shots. And I found if I made my shots go higher, I was then screwing up the top line of the game. And so I had to make all kinds of compromises and cut a few things off. But I've now tweaked a few things to where the aliens can go all the way to the top of the screen, so it does feel like they've got more space to move about. I've also, once again, allowed the aliens to go all the way to the bottom of the screen, and if they reach the bottom, they can wrap back to the top, but I will not have them wrapping from the top to the bottom because that's completely unfair to have something just come up and hit you in the butt, right? So, so they can go all the way down, and one of the reasons why I didn't want them going all the way down before was because in the game over loop I had conveniently put some text on here that I knew this text would not get destroyed, and so another reason why I had done that was to preserve this text. But you know what, I don't think that's really the end of the world, and it does make the aliens look like they're just so destructive that even in the game over mode they destroy things. And also now, because they can come lower, the ship is still here somewhere. You can't see the ship because I have not put the ship on the screen, but the ship's coordinates still exist, and all these guys do is they check for the coordinates. So from time to time these guys will crash into your invisible ship, which is right between the T and the N. I think it's somewhere around there is right where your ship is. So when the alien does crash into your ship, it will trigger the explosion, it will update the number of ships on your screen, and then it'll restart the loop. So even though the aliens are potentially screwing up the bottom line of text, that can be periodically refreshed. So let me just show you the other tweak, which has to just do with performance, and I think I've got my laser shots moving a little tiny bit quicker. So now we're in the main game loop, and just a reminder, I've recently made it where you can move your ship up and down. I've recently made it where you can steer your shot. But one of the things I feel, and I don't have any way to really track this scientifically, but it feels to me like the laser shot is going up a little faster. Now what I had to do as a compromise here is that the laser actually mentally does go up to the top line here right under the score. So the laser's X and Y coordinates, they make their way that high, but the way I have the routine for when I put the laser on the screen and when I erase the laser on the screen, I'm allowing the laser to go mentally higher, but visually you won't see it when it gets to that top one, and that fixes the glitch where it would erase the top line where it says wave 1 and things like that. So before I was just kind of lazy and I said, well, I'm not going to let it go that high. I went ahead and let it go that high, and I said, okay, well now what can I do to kind of tweak the code for how I place and erase the laser on the screen. So I've tweaked that code to where it won't place it when it's it won't place it, but it will still track it mentally. It'll track it for the laser, so the laser will know if it hit a ship, and since I've let the ships go higher, the ships will also know if they hit a laser. So if an alien happens to sidestep into a laser, he'll know it, and he'll also die, because it's all part of the same game logic. So just minor tweaks, and I feel like I've got the shot moving a little faster. That's about the bulk of it right there. So not a lot in the way of new gameplay, but just more just tuning and tweaking. So that's my project update.
What I really like about this project update, it does prove you can get to level 2.
All right, good on you. Good on you.
That could be special effects.
It needs a rage quit button on it.
Yeah, one of the things I still have to figure out is how to disable the break key. I haven't figured that out yet. I'm trying all the stuff from the old Pokes and Peaks and Execs thing, and I haven't done. So yeah, I have a few people saying it looks like it's a little faster and it looks good. All right, thanks guys. All right, well, man, this is an extended version of the Brady Bunch right now. Look at all these people up here on the screen. This is amazing, right? We're all here. This is the story of a bunch of old guys. And so we're about a half hour in right now. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll get into our main topic today, where we're going to really dig into the Coco Pi and reveal to the world that the Coco Pi is now also the Dragon Pi too, because when I say we, I mean Ron Klein is adding Dragon emulation to the Coco Pi as well. So it's very cool. So we'll be right back after a few words here, and then we'll get into the Dragon Pi presentation. So don't go anywhere, boys and girls.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK. And now, these messages.
At Gsoft, we make games for the TRS-80 color computer, TRS-80 MC10, and Dragon computers. Our basic games cover the range of genres from arcade, to text adventures, to simulations, to 3D dungeon crawls. This is our latest puzzle game from Japan, Fruit Panic. So come on and drop by our website and download our latest games.
What's going on, everybody? Stevie Stroh, and I want to say thank you for continuing to watch and listen to CoCoTALK. We love doing this show. We think we put together a pretty good show for you, but this show could be better with your help. So if you would like to send a feedback, a comment, a suggestion, a show topic, or maybe even your own little segment or bumper, then send it to us via email to CocoTalk@CocoTalk.live. This show would be nothing without you. Love to hear from you.
Radio Shack, America's technology store. Computer shopping has never been better at Radio Shack. Here's proof. Our new ultra-high-performance 386SX 20 MHz computer with 85 megabyte hard drive, only $12.99. And it's from Tandy, manufacturer of the best-selling PC compatibles in America. Or get a 286-based Tandy home office computer with color monitor and hard drive, only $899.95. Shop your friendly nearby Radio Shack. Great selection, superior service. Nobody compares.
Nobody compares to Radio Shack. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And speaking of feedback, I did have that too. I want to read something real quick. We did get an email. I don't know if some of you guys saw it too. So, yeah, we do ask people to send us an email to CocoTalk@CocoTalk Live with either feedback or suggestions and stuff. And for those of you who are in Discord, we've got some Discord channels too where people can throw in suggestions on things to talk about, etc. So we got an email from James Lowry. And he said, I came across your site and programs, CocoTalk Live, while looking back in time and seeing what was out there for the Coco and the Coco 2. So I had the privilege of owning one for a while after having a Tandy ? And I guess he doesn't remember which one, a smaller unit, pretty much nothing but a membrane keyboard. Actually, he's probably thinking of the MC10. I had a Tandy something. It's smaller with a membrane keyboard and an RF and cassette recorder. Said I had a terrific program on it. Once entered correctly, it helped create PCBs for etching to eliminate crossed paths. That's kind of interesting. Anybody ever use PCB software on the Coco? I think that's pretty avant-garde application there.
Yeah, it actually exists. I'll have to dig it up, but I found it in the archives.
Okay. And he said, my Coco eventually had 4 cartridge expansions, 2 floppies, and a hard drive. I also did some mods for a mono display and sound. These I did also for some stores who were using the Cocos as a full inventory and point of sale system in multiple businesses. I was surprised to see the extent they had these machines used. It was grand, at least for then. From there, I moved on to the Tandy SX1000, and I believe soon enough the next machine I put together myself. Anyway, I was a subscriber to the Rainbow magazine, and I had contributed an article. I think it was an educational series on programming for various aspects of the Coco. I submitted a program called Joy Zap, demonstrating a simple axis button use as well as how it could be built upon. I cannot tell you what month the article was published, but I was wondering if anybody knew who might be able to provide a scan of the cover of the article for me. Thanks. Jay Lowry. And so and then I think Alan Huffman had responded with that, so I think I'll just switch over to that real quick. But Alan Huffman had posted the Rainbow that it was in. So anyways, we got somebody who wrote into us, and so that was kind of cool. What is going on? What are you guys talking about? Death Blossom. I heard that name mentioned twice. What the heck is Death Blossom? I've not heard of that.
That's in the last Starfighter.
Oh, what was that called when he spun around and just blew everything up with that major attack? That was called the Death Blossom?
Mm-hmm. Only for the bravest starfighters willing to stay to the end.
Yes. Okay. So all the right moves was the episode. Coco Chess, Sea War, Talking Bingo, and Escaping from Tut's Tomb. Learn to create high-quality games in assembly language. Compare disk files for duplicates. Convert ML into BASIC. So I guess this is. Look at this. It actually says here the old switcheroo 2 and more. So there was an old switcheroo on the cover of Rainbow magazine. What do you know? So anyways, that was the Rainbow. So this was August 1988. Just so if anybody's interested in looking that one up, there you have it. We have that to look at. So yeah, so definitely I want to say thank you to James Lowry, or Lowry. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name properly, for writing us. Definitely appreciate it. Anybody else see that? Because I went to the CocoTALK email address, and I think that spreads out to a few of us.
Yeah, they did see it.
Yeah, cool stuff. So there you have it. And now what we're going to do here is we're going to switch over to Mr. Ron Klein. I'm going to stop sharing my system sound. Now, I got to get used to the software just a little bit here. Where the heck is Ron Klein? How do I make Ron Klein the big one? Spotlight video. There we go. All right. Ron Klein.
Ignore the mess in the background.
You have the spotlight, sir. What I thought would be kind of cool, since I believe most people know who you are, Ron Klein, but for the one or two who don't, and shame on them, maybe you could just give us a little mini life story, where you came from, where you are, where you're going, type of stuff.
Oh gosh, well, I came from my mom. Italian lady.
We don't need explicit details on that part.
Yeah, I can't go into how it was created, but I can tell you she's a great cook, and that's probably why I'm as big as I am. So, but anyway, I started out with the Coco many years ago. A friend of mine, his dad worked for Motorola, and I'm not sure if there was an employee program at the time, but that's where I saw my first Coco 1, a silver 4K one. And I loved the machine, going over to his house, seeing the machine. So I eventually got one. I didn't get one until it was a Coco 2. And I started out with a 16K Coco 2, eventually got floppy disk drives, things like that. And, you know, we're talking, this was just around, maybe just before high school. Steve, you know, I'm just about as old. Well, I am as old as you. Just turned 51 this year. So in any case, I had the machine up until the Coco 3 came out, but I never did get a Coco 3. I was strictly Coco 2, but I had it expanded with MPI, floppy drives, things like that. At 18 years old, I had various jobs. I liked cars, and I wanted to have money to build cars. So I had multiple jobs, and I wound up finding at that time a local Radio Shack computer center that was selling just the computers, not the regular storefront. And I worked there for just over a year doing the inside sales. And of course, at that time, the Tandy 1000 was just being made available. So a lot of that was building and configuring those for customers. And they did have the Coco 3 in there, but of course, nobody was promoting that. It was all their business machines, you know, Xenix, their 6000 series machine. And I had a really good time with it. And then, like a lot of other people, I upgraded to a PC compatible, a 1000, and got away from the Coco and actually sold everything I had. And it wasn't until some years down the road that I was on eBay and I acquired a bunch of stuff back when it was cheap. And then that went into storage for a number of years. And then maybe 4 years ago, I started to unbox some things after I did a move. And you know, John Linville started doing his podcast, and that kind of got me, well, like a lot of other people, it got us interested in the Coco again. And that kind of got me started back in the community. So it was very neat to see that some of the names I had heard, which I thought when I was a kid, are still actually around today. And I'm not young, so it's a lot of these guys are still around, and I think it's great. So that's kind of the background of my color computer history. So
cool.
Yep.
And what do you do for a living now?
What do I do for a living? I work in IT. That was never my intended thing. I thought I would be spinning wrenches, a mechanic, or actually as a very young kid, I like drawing. I like comics. I did a lot of illustrating and things like that. At one point, I thought I wanted to work for Disney as an illustrator. And I still do some stuff on the side, tinkering, but I enjoy doing that so much I didn't know if I wanted to do that necessarily for a living. And the IT thing just kind of fell into my lap, you know, being around computers. And I credit, like a lot of people, the Coco for getting, you know, me started down that path. And fortunately, my folks, you know, had a little bit of money at that time to help get my first one. And, you know, that's what really got me started. So IT, I'm still doing it today. Anyone that's been in IT for a long time knows that there's been a lot of changes with regards to outsourcing, offshoring, everything else. So it's been a real challenge. But, you know, I hope I can get a few more years in because I'm not close to retirement yet. And so that's what I do today.
Excellent.
I know you're Italian and you love spaghetti, and you got some spaghetti behind you there. Is that a server?
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff. There is, yeah. So the story about the basement is we never finished it, and I didn't know where I wanted the racks or whatever I had. So I ran a bunch of extra cable, knowing that one day I could maybe move it, and then I would shorten the cable. So yes, it looks like a disaster, and that's just a small part of the basement. It's a pretty big basement.
Yeah.
You know, fortunately, I kind of pretty much run the place down here, so. The wife just throws me food once in a while, and but the only thing down here's a bathroom now. It's roughed in, but I don't have it finished yet. So
that's cool.
They'll be running a commercial soon, so you can go.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I drink a lot of water, so that would help. Yep.
What is the origins of the color computer emulation running on the Raspberry Pi? Because one of the things you wanted to make sure too is you're not taking any credit for anything, but you've been kind of the guy who's been putting all this together and making it a project. But where did the origins of color computer emulation on the Raspberry Pi come from?
Well, the Raspberry Pi just been an interesting project. You know, these single board computers, I started years ago. And of course, I love emulation, video games, everything else. And there was a project out there called RetroPie. Many of us have heard of it. And it's a distribution that targets not only vintage computer systems, but old console home systems and even some arcade systems. And that's a great project. So I was interested in seeing if we could get a Coco to run on it. And what I found is that the versions of MAME that they include with that distribution are quite old. There's actually multiple versions they support, but they're older. And over the years, there's been enhancements made to MAME, especially around the Coco emulation, where sound card support's been added, bug fixes. There's just numerous things. So I'm like, okay, let me see if I can get the latest version of MAME to run. And what I found is there really isn't any pre-built images of the latest versions of MAME. So there was another project out there by a gentleman who was doing the compiling of MAME for the ARM architecture for the Raspberry Pi. Chucky Hobnob was his, Steve Boswell is the guy's name, and I give him a lot of credit for doing a lot of the work with regards to getting the latest versions of MAME to compile. But I still found there was a lot of performance issues. You wouldn't think a Coco would be so hard to emulate at full speed on a platform like the Raspberry Pi, considering it can run some pretty impressive things. But it is. And so I learned how to do the compiling myself from his project. I started with Raspbian, which is a Linux distribution that is for the Raspberry Pi. So I didn't start with RetroPie as a base. And from there, I got the compiling working. Then I started working on performance tweaks, all based on the Raspberry Pi 3. The Raspberry Pi, the original one and the 2 just aren't capable of doing it. You needed video hardware acceleration, which is part of the Raspberry Pi 2 and the SDL2 libraries, but it's still not fast enough. So in any case, that's what led me down the path of coming up with a distribution that was focused on the Coco and the latest version of MAME. That grew into looking at all the other projects that people have been working on with regards to the Coco, including other emulators like XROAR, that started morphing into the development tools that the community has provided. There's so many good people out there that have done so much stuff, and again, Steve, you had mentioned it. I don't take credit for any of it. I just tried to get it all on the Raspberry Pi. And it was mainly just for me, but I figured I would share it if others were interested. So that's that was the origins of the project, getting Coco emulation to work on the latest versions of MAME and even XROAR, but at full speed. And all the other things like the development part of it and some of the other features that have been added like DriveWire and things, that's, again, all community things. But I figured, you know what, if it runs on the Pi and it works, I'm going to add it. Somebody may be interested in it.
Yeah, yeah. There's a kitchen sink of ancillary services running on here, which hopefully we're going to scratch the surface of some of them. We're not going to cover everything, but we're going to show you the fun stuff and the shiny, pretty stuff. But we'll show you some of the tech stuff behind the scenes too. Here's a great synopsis that Bruce Moore put in the live chat. He says, "Ron is the Steve Jobs of the Raspberry Pi. He takes all the good technologies and packages them together in a user-friendly manner."
Well, I'm not so sure about user-friendly yet. You know, I added a very simple menu to a lot of things, but honestly, there is a little bit of Linux background that would be very helpful in this regard.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but I try, and you know, if people give me feedback, I'll be happy to incorporate it into the project. I try to, you know, to the best of my ability.
Sure. Well, that's a good introduction. Let me do this now. I'm going to show people kind of where to go to get the Raspberry Pi, and then we'll take it from there. So one of the first things you can do is if you go to my website, which is, when I say my website, it's a community website, but I have a website I've thrown together called imacoconut.com, which I do mention on this show, right? And you still hear people saying, if only there was a website that we could go to that would have information about the color computer. Yes, and so on the imacoconut.com site, if you go to downloads, a little bit down here on the download page, it says Ron Klein's Coco Pi3 image, and there's 3 links. So there's one link that you can download directly from my site. There's a second US link that points to Rick Adams' hosting of the project, and there's a third link that points to Simon Jonassen's hosting of it, which is running on a 1 gigabit fiber connection too. So anybody in Europe can get a high-speed download of that. So you got 3 different mirror sites to download the thing. When you click on one of those links, you get a page like this. It's a very simple page, but in the top left-hand corner is the zip file you could download. So it's basically distributed as an image that you download the zip file, you extract the zip file, you then need to quote-unquote burn that image to a micro SD with your imaging software of choice, right? Am I doing a good job so far, Ron?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
And then Ron Klein also has a link to one that you can run on Windows from SourceForge.net Project's Win32 Disk Imager. So if you run Windows, there is a very user-friendly GUI tool that I'm using to take his image and burn it to the SD card. And then you pop that SD card into your Raspberry Pi 3 and you boot it up and you're in CocoPi, right? And then there's also a document that Ron has been updating too. It's a Google Doc, so if you click on the link, there is a more than fair share of documentation on the project that you can look at. And it gets into a lot of the things that are on here. This also has the 3 links listed where you can download it from. It's going to be getting into some of the features and the different versions of MAMEs and the ability to support the 6309 CPU. The fact that we're now supporting XROAR and Brett Gordon's YDOS, and there's just so much stuff on here. So there is a document. There's a living document that will get updated as you continue to update the project. And this also gets into a lot of the features and how to get into the administration and the maintenance of the stuff and all kinds of stuff. So all that stuff is there, right? And so what that is going to take us to right now is an actual live demo where I am going to fire up the Raspberry Pi. And then, Ron, you're going to take us through a tour of the system right now. Maybe what I should do, too, for maybe anybody who's never seen a Raspberry Pi system, I'll just bring my camera up real big, too, and I'll show you my little thingy before. Oh, by the way, I need to turn that off. We're not ready to show that yet.
And
okay.
Steve, are you going to make your screen bigger?
Yeah. Oh, you need to click on me. Actually, let me do that. Let me do that. Let's go back. You guys need to click on me to make me big now, I think. Yeah. All right.
I'm plenty big enough. I could be smaller.
Yeah. All right. So here's my Raspberry Pi 3, and mine's in a clear case. I think this is the one you recommended I get, Ron. And this came with, this was a kit I bought. So it's the Raspberry Pi 3. Had a couple of heat sinks, I don't remember if this one came with the clear case or if I bought the case separately, but that it also had the little the USB power charger thing. And this was, I think, about $35 for the Raspberry Pi, and then I bought the case for I don't know how much, right? So this is what a Raspberry Pi 3 looks like if nobody's ever seen one. It's got USB ports, it's got an Ethernet port, it's got on the back here, it's got an HDMI connection that I'm going to use, and then it's also got a little micro USB doohickey that you use to give it power. So this is the actual system, and these things go for about $35-ish, and you could probably look around and find them on sale from time to time, right? So I'm gonna plug it in. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm right now I'm not doing anything fancy like Bluetooth. I'm plugging in like a Logitech wireless keyboard mouse combo into the USB port. It gets the job done. I'm now going to apply power.
I see Jim asking if it has to be a Pi 3. Yes, Jim, it does. The 2 and the original aren't. The performance isn't there. The latest version of the distribution I'm setting up will work with the 3B Plus now, which is the latest version of Raspberry Pi. The reason I mention that is because when you go to purchase it, or anyone that's interested, there's really no additional cost to go up to the faster model. Now, there's pros and cons I've heard, but it'll work on both. So you're welcome, Jim.
All right, so this is the Raspberry Pi booting up. And once it's booted up, it's done. Now, there's a bunch of things going on here. Like this, you notice it's starting Samba. Samba is a Microsoft share. So it makes this very easy once you get it on your home network, wired or wireless, where you can, Ron's created a file share where you can drag contents over to the Pi through the network. Just making it really a no-brainer. You don't have to worry about putting stuff on your SD card or managing files. It's just designed to be super easy, right? So we're looking at the main menu right now, and so we notice that we have Color Computer 2 menu, which the default emulator is MAME, correct?
Yes, MAME was the primary focus, but I wanted to add XROAR because it can run under Linux and it works compiled as an ARM binary. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to add it. It's a good emulator for Coco 1, 2, and Dragon emulation. Absolutely. Yep.
So that you can choose to run a Coco 2 either in MAME or in XROAR. We've got a Coco 3 menu, and this is the new stuff here that we kind of want to reveal today, is that now CocoPi is also supporting Dragon, right? So we've got Dragon emulation via MAME, and we've got Dragon emulation via XROAR. And so when you first boot up, this is kind of the first menu you see. You can choose if you want Coco 2, you can choose if you want Coco 3. It's even got an MC10. Steve Bjork is going to be happy about that. And it's got Dragon menus. Now the Dragon menu it's a new feature, so it's kind of a work in progress. So there's a little bit more to be done, like with the software library and stuff, but it's here. Yep. And then we got a bunch of utilities. So what should I show first? Should I just fire up a Coco 2 and show them how easy it is to load a game or a piece of software on here?
Coco 2. Now, the thing to keep in mind, these menus were designed for what I like, but anyone can modify these things. Now, when I say that, I encourage people to make changes however they want. But again, there's a little bit of a skill set needed with regards to Linux, just to know how to edit scripts and things like that.
Okay, so I'm going to fire up Coco 2, and then look at all the choices we have, right? We've got a Coco 2 with just Disk Extender Color Basic, or what we'd call RS-DOS, right? We've got HDB-DOS running DriveWire. We've got RGB-DOS with a hard drive image already mounted. We've got, is it pronounced YDOS or YADOS? How do we say that?
I don't know. Brett would have to answer that. I call it YDOS, but it would, yeah.
We've got one that also supports the speech and sound cartridge over a multi-pack interface. So if you wanted to play the 2 or 3 games that take advantage of the music, that's there. But let's just try like a real simple RS-DOS Coco 2. So when you hit enter, it has fired up the Coco, and then boom, it's in full screen. And that loaded up pretty quickly, right?
It'll load faster. That first initial load of MAME, the Raspberry Pi, the operating system, it caches things. So it'll be a little bit faster even the next time.
Okay. And now this is using all the MAME built-in menus and GUIs, right? So you hit the tab key.
Correct.
This brings up the MAME GUI menu. And now if I wanted to load software, I'd go down here to File Manager and hit enter. And if I wanted to load, for example, a floppy disk, I would hit that. And then the cool feature is this right here, this software list. So when you go to open a disk, and this is part of MAME. Is this built into MAME?
It is. It's part of MAME. And what happened is with the distribution now, MAME includes references to 2 or 3 software titles only. Working with, I always pronounce his name wrong, but Gulamame from the TRS-80 Color Computer Archive site, he was so nice and allowed me to have an archive of some popular titles. And I actually worked with him to create an XML generator that MAME uses to add and create these software lists. So if you click on that, the software list, it comes up and it says, okay, we want to look at color computer disk images. Select that.
Boom, look at all these.
These all come from the archive. And the way MAME has this set up with their software list, it is smart enough to know if you chose Color Computer 2 or 3, so it'll only show disk titles that are compatible with that. And the idea behind it is if you click on one of these, it will mount that disk image into Drive 0 automatically.
Okay, and then I just hit Tab to get out.
Yep, and then
if I type in dir,
yep, and it'll show that title.
Right. I can load an exec. I'm hearing a little bit of static on the sound right now.
Yeah, that unfortunately for disk I/O, that is a main thing that we're working on with the Raspberry Pi. Doesn't do it for everything. Sometimes it comes and goes. But the regular audio all works okay.
There we go. Now, I don't have a joystick connected to this right now, but you can see here how easy it was to load that up, right? And that was
let me mention that real quick about controllers. So it's going to take MAME's going to take advantage of any controller that you have connected to the Raspberry Pi. So for example, I've experimented with some Bluetooth controllers, and Nintendo makes a Bluetooth one called the Nintendo Pro Controller. I'm not advocating buying it, but what I'm mentioning is the fact that that controller has digital and analog controls all on the same controller. And that's actually kind of handy for some software titles. So if anyone has a USB controller, a Bluetooth controller, those will all work with MAME.
So any controller you want. So
well,
that's good.
For the ones I've tried, yes.
Yeah.
That's for the ones I've tried.
Now, MAME does support using joysticks using the arrow keys and stuff. Does that support it in the CocoPi?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You'd have to bring up the GUI menu and just remap the input. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm hearing some really wonky static noise right now while I was loading it.
The only time that there's static with the Raspberry Pi with this, it's the disk I/O, and it's not DriveWire disk I/O. It's the built-in
MAME disk I/O, huh?
Yes. Yep. It doesn't do it in XROAR. It doesn't do it again using DriveWire.
Okay, so it's pretty easy to fire up a Coco 2, go to the File menu, go to Load, go to Software Library, and pull up a list of a lot of software that's already baked into the image. All right, so it just, you know, if you just wanted to play Coco 2 games right now, you've got a Coco 2 and you got a lot of software already here, preloaded, right?
And people that are used to using MAME, I mean, this is really no different than regular MAME on a regular workstation. Just I wanted to get it running on a Raspberry Pi.
Right. So, does anybody have any questions on just basic emulation, firing up a Coco and launching a disk image? Is everybody cool with that?
Is speed throttling supported too? Where if your Pi 3 can emulate probably a Coco 2 faster than Coco 3, that you can run some stuff faster?
Yeah. So with the way MAME is by defaulting is it's trying to run it at rated speed. The only option I would have with MAME is to run it with a no throttle command, which says run it as fast as you can without any throttling to make it accurate, emulation accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use that on games per se, but if you're doing like development or something on it natively, then it's handy.
That is extremely handy because your disk I/O, the emulated disk I/O, not DriveWire, but everything else, it's all faster. Everything is faster. Yep.
Bruce Moore is asking, can we use the Raspberry Pi to get the world record on Donkey Kong?
That's on Billy Mitchell.
So here's here I'm going to show the same thing. Now I'm going to go to File Manager, and this time I'm going to go to Cartridge, and then I'm going to go to software list, and then Tandy Radio Shack cartridges, and then boom, we've got a bunch of the different cartridges. Like who would not want to see Dungeons of Daggerath, right? You hit enter, and then boom, I've just booted up the Coco with a cartridge. How hard was that? Right? And so one of the questions was, is the software included in the image? Is the Coco game software included?
So that's an interesting thing. So a lot of this is available online. We all know it. For the distribution, I have personally, obviously, I copy those files and add it. What I've done is provide instructions on where the software needs to get copied to on the Pi. And that includes the ROM images needed for emulation on the various Coco systems. I don't know if anyone would say anything, so I do not include it with the distribution I place on the Pi. If people in the community want to get a hold of me on the side, I'm happy to help them, point them to where they can get the stuff and how to install it. It's not hard to do. And again, I'm just happy to help if someone has any questions on that. I do provide instructions within the documentation as well. And most of us in the community, you know, Steve's put a lot of good links out there with regards to Coco information, with regards to like where the archive's at, things of that nature. So it's pretty accessible to get these titles.
And isn't that kind of some of the agreements of MAME? If you're going to distribute MAME, that you can't technically distribute, you know, ROMs with it.
I'm not a lawyer. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express once, but I I just didn't want to take a chance with that. So that's why I don't include those.
Gotcha.
That means you don't include the ROMs and you don't include the software. You have to get both on your own?
The cartridges I've included because those are part of the MAME's distributing that with some of their stuff, but the ROM images needed for the bio, like your basic ROMs and things like that, I cannot include those. No.
And will you support the when VCC gets converted? Apparently, it has been patched to work under Linux and the Mac. Will you be making that available on the CocoPi?
Nick, I would be happy to. The one thing you got to keep in mind with the emulators running on, and this is actually very important. I'm glad you mentioned this. I am not using X Windows on the Raspberry Pi. It's there. It's part of Raspbian. But when you see these emulators come up, they're compiled for direct console access using the SDL libraries. So when I compiled XROAR, it's using that. When I compile MAME, it's using that. They are not GUI-based apps per se. So if VCC is something that I can compile for console output only, I'd be happy to try it. That doesn't mean it couldn't run under X Windows possibly on the Raspberry Pi, but I was going for as much performance as I can get, and I don't know if it would run at a good speed, but I'm happy to try it. I'm happy to try it out.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, but I think it's probably too soon to be asking the question because even though they're working on cross-platform, it's still got things to go before it's really a viable, completely functional emulator. I'd say, you know, there's artifacting issues, there's gimme issues, there's 6309 issues, you know. So I know VCC is on its way to getting there, but today it's not there.
Can we see some Dragon?
Do what?
Can we see some Dragon?
Yeah, we can see some Dragon.
That is just being started now, Ron. So I'm literally just adding the support for that. It's all been built into MAME and XROAR. It's just I'm adding it to the menus.
Right. So which one would you? So when we hit Dragon menu or Dragon menu XROAR?
Dragon menu is strictly for MAME. And what I did is I just looked at the available Dragon drivers that are in MAME and added those to the menu. I haven't done any configuring with regards to software list support, or I guess even adding the floppy disk drive yet, but I'll get to that.
All right, I'll just pull up the menu to see what our options are. So right now we've got Dragon 32, Dragon 64, Dragon 64 Plus, Dragon 128 Beta. Let's see what we have under Dragon menu for XROAR. Oh, this one's a lot longer. Okay, so in XROAR we've got Dragon 32, Dragon 64, Dragon 200E. Not even familiar with that one. We've got a Tano Dragon. That's our American version of that. We can mount a disk. We can mount a cassette, mount a bin, mount a ROM. Can select what version. This is what I like here, how you've added these attract modes. Now, are these ready to show? Is this attract mode able to be shown right now?
and Dragon are not available yet.
Okay.
I do want to talk about a few of these things. So the Dragon versions that you see there are what's available on XROAR. I just literally looked at what was being supported and added those to the menu. The reason you see a mount disk, mount cassette, bin ROM, those options in MAME are built in through MAME's built-in menu. And we all saw Steve when he went through and did the floppy disk and cartridge support. It is built into XROAR, but if you use the GUI version, and since we're not running the GUI version of XROAR, there is no built-in menu for XROAR the way I'm running it. So basically, these are quick ways for you to mount a disk image or any of those prior to launching the emulator. And then when you go into the emulator, they will be available. I'm talking to Karen on the side to find out if there is a way to do it. I don't know. You know, he's got a lot going on, and that would probably be a pretty big project to add it. So this was kind of my way of getting around that for now.
Right. But just to boot into a Dragon, boom, I'm here, and I'm actually in Dragon DOS right now.
And
so
if you hit now, were you on the main menu?
This is in MAME, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't think I have any Dragon software on there, and I'm not sure if it'll mount a regular. You could try. I don't know if it'll mount a regular disk.
Well, so when we go to software list and we go to Dragon DOS diskettes, this is the cool part here, is that all of the software is already pre-populated by MAME to recognize what to look for. We just need to add the images to this to make it work, right?
Correct.
So,
correct.
And from the looks of this, there is just a spit ton of Dragon software on disk, no less. And I'm sure like on cassette and everything too, there's going to be an even bigger library, right? So Easy Adventure Writer, Flagging Bird, Fourth OS. So yeah, so this is kind of new, the fact that you've added the Dragon, but in the near future we'll have the Dragons, and then they'll be able to copy the software images over to here, and be able to load Dragon software up on the same Coco Pi image, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And that's very cool. So how about we show off something on a Coco 3?
Quick question from Bruce in the chat.
Yeah, I'll answer Bruce's question. So Bruce, what happens is on the Pi, there's various ways to get software installed. For the Windows users, there is a Windows share via what's called Samba in the Unix world, and you can actually drag files to it. Yep.
Let me show that off right now. Okay, if I go to Network on my computer right now, and this is Windows 10. Here's my Raspberry Pi. So my Raspberry Pi shows up like another computer on my network. If I double click that, there's a thing that's called Share 1. And inside Share 1, this is where you can go to ROMs. This is where you can fill in like all your Coco ROMs. So if you've got ROMs, if you're already running emulators on your PC, you've already got the ROMs and you can just copy them here, right?
Correct. Yep.
So here's where you go to ROMs. I'm not even sure what half these other folders are for.
Well, if it looks a little small, let me see if you can you expand that window a little?
Okay, so they're bigger now. So I've got ROMs, I've got archive, ASM, carts, cassette, docs.
And again, you're using a development version I have, but like the software folder, that's for MAME. If you go in there, you're going to see where we put the images in for the Coco and for the MC10.
Okay, Coco cart, Coco floppy.
Yep. That's all standard MAME stuff. Yes.
Wow. And so I'm imagining that in the MC10. How about we fire up an MC10 and let's look at some, is this all Jim Gary stuff in here?
Yes, and I got permission from him as well. He was very, very generous with that. I don't always update it, but he
Coco floppy. So if you had floppy disks, again, you get these from the Color Computer Archive, and then you would drag them in here. You don't even have to change the names. You just throw the zip files in here. And then, and this has an HDMI output, right? So it's automatically connecting to a modern TV. You have done some things to force the aspect ratio to a 4:3 ratio. You're doing like a 1024 by 768 VGA resolution, right?
Yep. And that's all for performance. Basically, there's options within the Raspberry Pi at hardware, OS level, where you can tell it to run at a certain resolution, things like that. Again, it's all for performance reasons. This is what RetroPie did not do. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's great. It's just when I was trying to get these Coco drivers to run at rated speed, I really had to do some tweaks to get it to work.
Yep. So you could load your own disks in here. And so if you just went in and so somebody wanted to load custom software and have their own disk images, what folder would they put them in here under Share 1?
Well, under Share 1, if they want to create their own folder called projects, that's fine too.
Yeah.
The thing with MAME is that you have the XML software list support, and then you can have your own where you can just browse the file system.
Oh, you know what? I'm not showing that off, though. Nobody else is seeing what I'm showing off here. I don't know why. Or were they? They weren't. Nobody else was seeing that. I'm an idiot. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. There's the folder. Sorry about that. I'm scrolling through stuff on my screen.
That's
so let me
what I was looking for too when I asked.
Yeah. So here we go. So here's the thing, right? So this is my Windows 10 PC, and my Raspberry Pi shows up on the network as just Raspberry Pi. When I double click that, these are the shares, right? The shares come through kind of large, and then here, this one here is called Share 1, and then in Share 1 are these other folders, right?
Yep.
And so these are the different folders. This is where one folder is called ROMs, and this is where you would put in all the ROMs for like your BIOSes, like all your disk extended color basic, your color basic, your all those things, right? So this is where the ROMs go to run the Coco, right? So you got your Coco 2Bs, your Coco 3s, your Coco 3s with the Hitachis. You've even got Dragons in here, I think, right?
There's a couple other things in there too.
The Becker port and
wild, but we won't talk about those.
Right. All right. So the ROM folder is where you would have to populate this with ROMs over your network. And I'm browsing my Raspberry Pi. My Raspberry Pi is connected to my home Wi-Fi, and we'll show you how to set that up with an easy-to-use menu. And Nick Marotta says we need a CocoDo bin in Canada, right? So, so we have ROMs in the carts folder. This is where the zip files would go. This is all your CCC files for your color computer cartridges. All right, so those are there. Then those, again, you'd have to populate that through cassette. There's a handful of cassette images here. What else am I looking for? You said software. In the software folder.
Yes, that's for MAME.
This is for MAME. So this is where you would populate that list that shows up in the MAME software list library, right?
Correct.
So there's one called CocoFlop. And when you double click that, these would be where you would drag in all the zip images for your floppy disks. And I guess the file naming convention needs to match what MAME is going to expect, right?
Yeah, so how it works is with MAME's built-in menu, you can browse your operating system anywhere to pull a file up. If you want it available in that software list feature, there's a corresponding entry you need in what's called that XML file. And for people that might be interested in having their software titles in that XML file, I've actually written an XML generator where you can point to a directory and it will read those software titles and it will add it to the XML file. It's probably more we want to get into on this show right now, but it's
no, that's fine.
Yep.
So we have a folder for cartridges. We've got a folder for floppies. We've got Coco carts, Coco floppies. We've got the MC10 folder, and this has got a lot of Jim Gary software on here. So, because I don't know anybody else who makes software for the MC10. So, so it's fairly easy to then find your Raspberry Pi on your network and fill in disk images and ROM images so you can get the system up and running. So I'm going to switch back to the Coco Pi now here for just a second, and then I think we're not done, but I think maybe we'll take a commercial break here. But I just out of curiosity, I haven't seen what the MC10 looks like, right? So when I hit MC10.
And what I did, because I kind of had Jim in mind, even though we haven't talked about this emulator itself, is I wanted the 4K version and the 20K version. I know he does development where maybe that's something he needs. It's just basically a command line option in MAME. What I would like to see for future use, but it's not there yet in MAME. I've been talking to some developers on the side, is adding Darren's MCX 128 support.
Oh, neat.
Yes, it's available in the VMC10 emulator for Windows. It's not available in MAME yet, but I'm hoping we'll get to that point.
Okay. All right, so now I'm in MC10, and because this is in MAME, if I go to File Manager, and then now my only option here is cassette.
That's correct.
Okay, and so now I'm going to go to Software List.
Yep.
and then Tandy MC10 cassettes, and then this is basically, so these are all the names here, right? So Auto Klondike, Auto Run, Backup, Bandit. So I'm just going to try Bandit. I have no idea what Bandit is. And then just go back now.
Yes, and then what you have to do, I think you have to do a C. Boy, is it C load? Because these are all.
If it's basic, should be C load, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how to get the backspace to work on MAME, so just C load. And then how long?
Then you got to go. You got to hit tab. This is a MAME thing. I think there's a cassette control. Where is it?
It's there.
Hold on.
Cassette, Bandit cassette.
No, there's a thing where you go back to the main menu.
Yeah, he had it.
Ron, you've already done this with the cassette?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You have to actually
tape control.
Yeah.
There
tape
you go.
control. Play.
There we go.
You actually have to play the tape.
Yeah, you have to hit the play button, just like
Yes.
You have to stop it too, I think.
And there's a way, and actually, guys, there is a way in MAME that you can automate some of that from the command line. And I'm actually working on that.
So when it stops blinking, we'll know that it's loaded.
Yeah, and the playing counter will also finish too.
Oh, so it has to reach position 23.
There you go.
There you are.
Okay. Oh, that's kind of cool. Interesting. So now it's just run. If I type in list, I should see his whole program.
Yep.
All right, here's his program. Big ass program. Hit run. Do you want sound? Of course I do. Please wait. Bandit by Jim Gary. Hit space to begin.
He keeps the MC10
Oh,
alive.
look
Him
at
and
this.
Jake, they're both doing great work on this thing.
Hit space to spin. Oh, now it's doing it. Boom, 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 boom. 3 bells wins $6.
We'll have to
Look
see
at
how fast
that.
this goes with James Diffendaffur's modified basic too.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And if there's a way to get that ROM, if he ever, I'd like to try to incorporate that as well, if he's willing.
So not only can this run a Coco, it can run a MC10. It can run a Dragon. It's pretty cool.
Was this 4K? Yeah, was.
No, I think I loaded up the 20. Oh, I loaded the 4K one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's look at some. Actually, let's do this. We're going to look at some Coco 3 stuff, and we're going to look at some tech stuff. But before we do that, I am going to go ahead and just play a commercial. And I'm going to let a little bit longer commercial break run that way in case anybody's got to go take a potty break or whatever else, because we've been on the air now for about an hour and a half. All right. Does that sound good, everybody?
Yep.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll come back. We'll look at some Coco 3 stuff on the Coco Pi, and we'll look at some more behind-the-scenes tech stuff, too, because it's a really cool project. So Nick Marode is asking for us to play the Coco Do commercial. Unfortunately, it's in a playlist. I have no idea where we are in the playlist, so it's luck of the draw. If we get lucky, we'll have Coco Do. So we'll be back in just a moment. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody else. We'll be back.
Hi, this is Rick Adams, and I'm the author of Temple of Rom, Shanghai, and now Bomb Threat, and you're listening to Steve Distro on CoCoTALK.
We'll return after these announcements.
I'm too sexy for my love, too sexy for my love, love's going to leave me. Shirt so sexy it hurts, and I'm too sexy for Milan, too sexy for Milan, New York and Japan. And I'm too sexy for your
David Ladd.
Crickets.
CoCoTALK, c'est le coq champignon, des micros et dans le pion. Pour le jeu, il n'y a pas d'attente, les études, c'est pas bizarre. L'expansion, il a ça, les commandes, tu vas voir ça. Notre Coco est bon pour tes cours, c'est bien serviable. Coco de Radio Chaton, la terre est dans le sac.
Un ordinateur couleur qui a de la personnalité. Le Coco 2 de Radio Shack. En solde pour Noël à partir de 149,95.
Coco 2 de Radio Shack, ton affaire est dans la sac, c'est toi et Coco 2.
We will return after these messages.
Introducing a computer that can change the way you work. The new Tandy 1000, complete with DeskMate software for easy-to-use word processing, filing, worksheets, scheduling, communication. Brought to you by Tandy, clearly superior for service, support, and software.
It's a low commercial.
Available at Radio Shack Computer Center.
Low volume commercial.
So affordable. Tandy technology, service, and support are clearly superior.
All right, well, we are back. Welcome back, everybody. So we are going to continue our look into the Coco Pi project. So what we've seen so far, we've seen a little bit about Coco 2 emulation. We've seen a little bit of Dragon emulation. We've seen some MT10 emulation. But the question on everyone's mind is, will this thing be a Coco 3? And the answer to that question is a resounding yes. And so we've got a Coco 3 with disk extender color basic. We've got HGB DOS. We've got RGB DOS, YA DOS. How about Nitrous 9 and DriveWire? Now, this is not the ease of use project. We've got Fuzzix on here, too. We've got Speech Sound Pack. We've got the Game Master card. Oh, the Nitrous 9, 6309 with Nitrous 9 Alpha. Is this the ease of use one?
Yes, but let me mention that I do not include the disk image for that because that project's kind of being controlled. That's part of my development testing. But you have it just for showing off.
The next version, it'll become public, so you can start including it if you want.
Oh, I would ask. Yep. Before.
All right. Do I need to make sure DriveWire is running on this thing right now, or do we know if it's already running?
No, that one. I think that one. Go ahead and click on that. Let's see.
All right. Let's see. So we're gonna go ahead and fire up Coco 3 with Nitrous 9, or not.
Type in DOS.
Oh, okay.
Yep, there's that disk I/O. Right.
Yeah, that noise is horrible.
Sounds like a slowed down EMP.
Nitrous 9, level 3, color computer.
Yep.
Ease of use edition, Alpha 3, Influx. You can now hit clear to another window while they load. Loading 49 fonts, plus graphics pointers and graphics patterns, etc. When this is done, will it just take me back to a prompt again? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. If you wish to change the monitor type, you can type in GUI from the G shell. Okay, what should I do here? If you wish to change the monitor type, you can type it from the GUI G shell, or you can type monotype -X, where you can replace X or C with composite or RGB, or M with monochrome. Do I need to do anything here, Curtis, or is this good to go as it is?
Yep, you can just type G shell if you want.
G shell. And I'm using the little mouse trackpad on my Logitech keyboard mouse combo, and I'm moving a mouse around very fluidly.
Yeah, that does look really good.
Yeah.
I like the icons.
And this is where you're going to drag everything right down here to the trash, because that's what OS 9 is all about, right?
That's Nick's permanent Nitrous 9 storage unit.
So what do I do next?
I click on DD the drive, I guess.
Just the top one, the DD?
Yeah.
All right, BBS commands.
Demos.
Or games or whatever. Yeah.
Well, we'll try demos.
And you know, this ease of use project has been great because this is going to allow people to get exposed to Nitrous 9 and not have to know how to do all the installs, boot disks, and everything else. I mean, that's the great part about it. Plus, you're bundling some really good stuff on this. So.
When you are done viewing a demo, press the Enter key several times, it says.
Yeah.
OS 9 Level 2 by Kevin Darling.
This is all written in BASIC, by the way.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. Yeah, it's got layers, huh? So you got the Mona Lisa in front of things.
Yeah, it's using page flipping, actually.
Yeah. For whatever reason, the bouncing ball demo was an important benchmark of this time.
Yeah.
So
started with the Amiga and then went to the Atari ST and the Mac, PC, and Coco, obviously.
Yeah. So it was pretty easy to get into Nitrous 9. It was pretty easy to get into a GUI. And now I'm back here to the demos. And if I want to go back one level, how do I go back one?
You can either click on the drive again to go to the root, or you can click that little close box beside DD demos, and it'll go back into root.
It's kind of tricky getting it lined up just right now.
Yeah, this is low-res mouse right now. So.
Okay. All right, so we got demos, we got games. So there's some games built in on Nitrous 9.
Yeah, there'll be more in the Alpha 4 coming out, or I might actually just make that Beta 1.
All right, so technically this is my first time actually looking at the ease of use project, other than seeing you do it at Coco Fest.
Such a helpful tester there.
Hey, hey now.
You know what? So Rogue is one of my favorites, but I don't know if that was working right on this one, right? Is that something you're still working on?
Yeah, I'm still doing some modifications. You can. This is a bug up. This is the JoyDriv bug where you can't make the full screen.
That's why. Yep.
So hopefully that will be fixed too.
So what do I got to do?
Just size whatever window size you want to play Rogue in.
Now, does this automatically load to fancy fonts, or is this defaulting to plain fonts?
On Alpha 3, I can't remember what I did. His spacebar, and you'll find out.
Rogue's name.
Now it's going to look like
oh yeah, it's got the people. I got my little stick figure. Okay, so it does. Hello, Curtis. Welcome to the Dungeons of Doom. All right, and this is 80 columns, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, you've got it set a little bit small. I think you probably got about a 78 by 24.
Okay, but it's using this. It's using the high-res fonts.
80 column. Yeah.
Okay. And before you're working on Rogue, Rogue was not able to be resized, right? Rogue used to...
No, it could be resized, but it would always use the hardware text font if you resized it. It would never use the graphics font. That's one thing I've patched.
Ah, okay.
It also will now work on graphics mode if you're on a 40-column screen, too, if you want it.
Neat. Okay, and I just closed that, right? So firing up a Coco 3, firing up OS 9, pretty easy stuff, right?
Hey, go to hard drive 1.
Okay, and Ron Klein, you're using this, right? So is it the RGB DOS hard drive?
Yes, that was something that Robert Galt, I think Barry Nelson did some modifications to it later. It's a hard drive image they have with an older version of Nitrous 9.
Now hit 6.
And disk extended color basic virtual floppy, all on the same hard drive.
Now hit DIR 55.
Oops. Keys are going pretty quick.
No, just DIR, yeah.
Yeah, it's the keyboard's a little funky for me. It's like it's typing really fast. Okay.
Yeah, load up Puyan. You can do run M quote Puyan. Oh, but you're going to have, when you hit P, you have to hit it twice. Because it
pauses.
Pause, yeah.
Oh, you can disable that. That's the thing built into MAME. For keyboard emulation.
What do I need to do to get it to tell it that it's on drive 55? Anything?
Yeah. Dot bin :55. So, no colon. Here you go.
Well, I'm
Nope.
trying to find it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm using a real keyboard.
Now,
and-
another thing I do is before I even put the name of the Puyen in, is I'll do Drive 55.
Oh, just type in Drive 55.
Yeah.
And that'll default to that disk. Yeah.
Okay, so this is that thing where, oh, this is the one that's patched for the Coco 3. All right, so this is Puyen patched for the Coco 3, so the colors don't suck as much, and it actually looks more like the real arcade game. So no, that's cool. So we booted up a Coco 3. Nick Marotta says I can't drive 55.
I don't think Sammy Hagar is going to be here today.
Yeah, so
probably at the Cabo Wabo.
So one of the things that hopefully everybody's been able to glean from this so far, when it comes to just running the emulators, you've made that real easy. We pull up a menu, we pull up an emulator, and then for the most part, you've made it pretty user-friendly to load the software into the emulator once you've populated the images into the share, right? But how about we look now at some of the science behind this and some of the other cool features. Like one of the ones I really want to show off is Mikey's PyWire. And some other things like that, right? So you want me to go ahead and jump down to the utilities menu?
Sure.
Okay. So in addition to all the emulators, which take up the first 6 slots right now, this is where you get into utilities. All right. And one of the things that Ron was showing me is if I want to figure out which version of DriveWire service I'm running, if I hit system status, this will come up and this will show me. And right now it's showing me that DriveWire 4 is running. But you notice it also has LW wire, it's got Pi DriveWire, it's got the EMCEE Server, which is like the MC10 version of DriveWire. And you even see here that it's got an IP address because it's on my network, right? So there's a way you can get it on your Wi-Fi by editing a text file, put in your network name and your password, and the CocoPi will get on your Wi-Fi. And so I've got an IP address, I'm on the network. I'm running DriveWire 4. But what can we do here to? I want to do that thing you showed me with the Mikey's PyWire. So do I need to stop DriveWire?
Yeah. So what happens is I've included multiple versions of programs that provide DriveWire service because they all feature something a little bit different, and because frankly they do run on the Pi, I figured I would include them. One thing I want to mention is not only does the Raspberry Pi provide DriveWire through the Becker port interface for the emulators, but if you have a real Coco, because the Raspberry Pi has USB ports, you can use the USB to serial adapters and you can host DriveWire for a real Coco on the Raspberry Pi. And that can become your DriveWire server. Same with the MC10. There's, if you have a real MC10 at home and you're running Darren's MCX 128 cartridge, you can hook up the same DriveWire cable to the same USB adapter and you can host files from that Raspberry Pi to your real MC10. And if you get real fancy, DriveWire has the ability to host multiple DriveWire sessions. So you could actually have DriveWire servicing at the emulator on a Pi, also hosting files for a real Coco. And if you make sure you're not using the same ports, you can actually have the MC10 connected as well. So it's really pretty neat.
That is kind of cool.
It is.
One of the things that you mentioned before, though, was I had to open up different windows, right? Different terminal windows in Linux to run the PyWire, right?
Yeah, so let me get into that a little bit. So DriveWire itself, the regular DriveWire 4 Java-based, can run as a daemon. So you can launch it, it just sits in the background, and you don't have to use the virtual consoles on the Raspberry Pi. When you look at things like Mikey's Pi DriveWire server or even William Estelle's LWire, those have to be launched as a console app. Now, if you're a Linux person, you can background those, but I'm trying to make this a little more simple. And what you want to do is, if you want to run one of the other DriveWire type of systems, you make sure you shut down the one that you're currently using. And I think you already did that.
Right.
And then what you want to do is hit Alt F. I think you already did that too, right?
Yeah, I'm just showing right now that none of these are running, right?
Well, it shows actually. Why is it showing they're all running? Hold on. Hit OK. Are you on the second console or the first?
That's the first console. This is my second console now.
Yeah, go to the first console.
Okay, this one says.
Yeah, let me explain what that is, and that's something I have to work on. Go to the first console.
Okay, I'm on the first one.
Do system status on the first console.
Mm-hmm. And right now it says the bottom 3 are all running.
Yeah, I don't know why they'd be showing on yours.
So should I just stop them?
Yeah, go to stop L-wire. We're just going to make sure they're stopped.
Stop L-wire.
It has to do with the fact that you're logged into the second console.
Okay.
That's
and
why.
We'll
as long as you've got them stopped, that's a bug fix I'm going to have to work on.
Whoops.
You just type in menu. Yep, that's because of the second console.
All right, so when I go to utilities right now and I go to system status, nothing should be running, right? Not running, not running, not running, not running. Okay, so nothing's running now. So now I go to my second window.
Yep, yep. Oh, you must hit escape. That's okay. You can just type in menu.
I don't know what I did. I don't know where I am. Okay, menu. Okay, so we go to utilities. We go to start Pi DriveWire.
And this is the second console, right?
It should be, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
All right, so now we're going to start this, and this is where you warn us that we should be in Alt F2 to be in a different terminal window.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not for regular DriveWire, just for some of these alternate DriveWires.
This is for the Python DriveWire.
Yep.
Okay. And so this is loading it up right now.
Yep, but then you flip over to your main terminal.
Now it's back to here.
Yep.
Okay, now if I go to system status, I should see that Pi DriveWire is running, everything else is not running. Okay. So that's good. So we'll get out of here. And by the way, this is also where you would reboot or shut down your Raspberry Pi to do it gracefully.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Yep.
So we'll go to return to main menu. So now we're going to go to Color Computer 3 menu, right?
Yep.
And then which one are we going to pull up? The Phuzix?
We want to use one that's using that has access to DriveWire. So you could even go under the HGB DOS if you'd like. The second one.
Well, what's the one that where we end up getting into Plato?
Second one's fine. Any of those that'll use DriveWire, but that one should be just fine. Most people are familiar with HGB DOS.
Okay.
And, you hit enter on that. It's just letting you know it's going to load up a standard Coco 3. And what it's doing is it actually loaded the new Plato terminal for that IRATA service. Brett wrote a Coco 3 client. It's still work in progress. And what this is doing is it's taking advantage of Mikey's Pi DriveWire, where you can actually get out to the internet with that DriveWire client. And by the way, you could mount the same disk image in regular DriveWire. I was just experimenting with Mikey's Python-based DriveWire just because I wanted to, just test it. And you're actually online right now.
I'm online. This is really cool. So everybody who's been talking about Telnet BBSing and all this kind of stuff, what all the cool kids are doing these days, we've just done it on the Coco Pi fairly easily, all in emulation. Has anybody else been on Plato yet?
That's what I was going to ask.
I haven't really messed with it. Yeah, so here's a games menu. Airfight, Avatar, Battleship, Bingo, Checkers, right?
Now I will warn folks that are using the IRATA service. It's really neat, but there's some interesting keyboard hotkeys that are used as part of that service, and not everything maps cleanly to the Coco 3 keyboard. And they're going to see that across the Commodore 64 and Atari and Apple. And Thomas, who's heading up that project, is working with the folks that are developing clients. He's done a lot of the client work himself, and Brett's working on the Coco 3 port, like I had mentioned. And there's a keyboard map, I think, that Brett had posted to help folks that are using the Coco 3, so they know what the next key is, what the shift back key is, things like that.
Yeah.
How would I run this on my Coco 3? Like, I have DriveWire hooked to it, or I have.
Yep.
Is that what I'd use it with DriveWire?
So yeah, so you can use it with DriveWire. It's just a matter of going into Discord. Right now, Brett has. I don't know if he's actually posted a binary of it. It's on GitHub. I took it and compiled it. I'd be happy to provide that. And then you would copy it to your Raspberry Pi ROM. You would mount it in DriveWire, and you would load it like any other disk image and go.
How about on just a stock Coco 3? How would I?
So on a stock Coco 3, Brett is working on, this is supported through the Becker port, which is for emulators. He is actually working on the bitbanger portion of it. So it loads up initially on a real Coco 3, but it doesn't do the internet connection yet. There's a timing issue that he's working on. Now, he may already have that fixed. I have not looked for the most recent version yet.
Okay.
But a lot of folks are going to want to use this on a real Coco 3.
Yeah. Cool. So
cool.
Should we wait for, when is the next distribution with all the Dragon stuff in it, and that going to be out?
Well, I call this one the Tandy Assembly Edition. I want it to be out before then.
Okay.
I just started adding the Dragon support, and of course, there's that bug now I saw with the system status when you have 2 consoles going. So I'll get that cleaned up. I'm not going to wait to release it much longer. The Dragon stuff is just going to be a work in progress, and I really need to get feedback from people that are more familiar with the Dragon system, because there's a lot of options in XROAR for Dragon support, and I am just unfamiliar with the Dragon. So I'm going to be probably reaching out to a few folks, to help with that. So to answer your question, Ron, I would say I'm going to post something within probably the next 2 weeks.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Cool. How do I, since I already have one, and I'm all set up, how do I incorporate the new stuff into what I've already got? Do I have to make a new?
Well, what I'll do is I will make a new SD card image. One of the things that I've been wanting to do is have package upgrades for these releases, but there's times when I do so many changes, it doesn't look like it visually, but under the covers there is. So in the case of anyone that's running the most recent release now, I will provide an archive of just the changes I've made, and I will provide instructions on how to copy that file, extract it, and overwrite the existing files. And then, in essence, you'll have the latest version.
Okay, so you won't have to do a complete up.
No, but for most people, if you copy your files to that Share One folder, if you have a copy of that somewhere else, you can literally just take a new SD card image, dump those files back on, update your Wi-Fi, and resize the SD card, those 3 things, and that usually gets you right back up to where you were. Now, in the case, I say that with tongue-in-cheek. If there's somebody like Rick Adams who does development, I'm sure
Here comes the train.
Does that happen anytime you say Rick Adams? Is that like that movie, what was it, with the horses Winnie, when you, Young Frankenstein?
Yeah, right? Frankenstein.
That's it. So for people, and we haven't really touched on that yet with the Coco Pi, but for people that are doing a lot of development work on it, then I would say, we want to have a little bit easier upgrade for them where they don't have to just copy the new SD card image over. So.
Right. And we have, I think, both ends of the spectrum on the call. Hopefully Rick is still here. So Ron Klein has been using this for a while as kind of on the consumer end of it, just using it. And what's your experience been, Ron, using the Coco Pi? Because I know you post a lot of pictures of you doing things on the Coco Pi. Do you feel that it was pretty easy to get up to speed and use? And have you over the learning curve of running it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. There was a learning curve, and he helped me a lot. He did one-on-one with me a few times. And somebody posted a YouTube video to get started with it, and that really helped me to start before I even called Ron. So that was good to see. And then basically try to break it, get in there and try to mess things up. And like if I get out of the menus and I wind up in Linux there, it was tricky on how to get back into the menu again, but I figured all that out.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm not a Linux.
I think I want to mention Ron's been great. He wanted a feature added a long time ago when he first started using it. So we take this for granted with Linux distributions and Windows. A lot of times when you plug in a removable media into your machine, we just take for granted it gets mounted and it's available. On Raspbian, there is no default for that. So he had a thumb drive where he didn't necessarily want to use a Windows share to copy files over. He wanted to use a thumb drive. And I added the support, looking online, there's some scripts and things, and with a little bit of Linux information. So now when you plug thumb drives into the Raspberry Pi, it automatically mounts them and makes them available.
Okay.
Right. And then that was before I realized that I can access my Pi on the network. And when I saw it on the network, it was like, oh, this is awesome.
It's so much easier.
Drag and drop. I just drag, I got stuff. I put stuff on. Then I go on a Raspberry Pi and look. It's there. So awesome.
Yeah, two big things that I found feedback-wise with the Raspberry Pi for anyone that's interested in using it. The first and most important is whatever SD card you use, you want to take an option, and that's under the Utilities menu. When you first get it copied, you boot it up. What you want to do is resize the file system to take advantage of your SD card capacity. You want to expand it fully. What'll happen is a lot of people will grab like a 16 gig card, and this image has got a lot of stuff on it. There's not a whole lot of room. So what'll happen is the OS will not have enough space to write temp files and things. That's how tight it is right now. Most people are putting in, 32 gig cards or 64 gig cards. It's very important to resize that file system on the first reboot. In fact, that may be a feature I add, just automatically check for that and just have it do it when you first boot it up. But
why does that happen? I mean,
why does what happen?
Why is it that it's not something it doesn't happen automatically? I mean, it's just like strange to, DOS people.
There may be reasons why you don't. I don't know. There's maybe reasons why somebody wouldn't want to expand their file system or change it.
What menu is that under again? I just want to pull it up. Is it
under Utilities? And it's not something I've added. It's part of Raspbian itself. So when you scroll down, there's let me click on screen here so I can see that. So Steve, there's something called Raspi config.
Run Raspi config script. So that's not right now. It's option number 18.
Yep.
Okay.
So you go into that, and then I'm just letting people know that you can mess up your Raspberry Pi, not permanently, just from a software perspective.
Okay. So now we have network options, boot options.
Yes.
Advanced options.
Under advanced. Yep.
Okay.
And
expand file system.
Option. Yep. That will go ahead and expand it to fit. To take advantage of all the extra space you may have in your SD card, and then it reboots, and then you're good to go with that.
Okay, so you got, and is that in your documentation too?
Yes, it is. Yes, and then the second thing, and this is the other biggest issue I've seen, is that people need to know, and it's in the documentation. If you don't have the ROM files copied over to the share where they're supposed to go, you're going to take these menu options, and I probably should add a message that says, you know what, there's no ROMs, because what will happen is MAME's erroring out in the background, but it's flashing so quickly and bringing the menu back up, you're not seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other big thing that has caught people on this. So that's something else I should probably do is add like a warning message if I don't see any ROMs or something like that. But beyond that, it's pretty much ready to go as soon as you boot it up.
Right. And so, and again, we've only seen a lot. We've only seen a little, but there's a lot there that's already in this image.
Yeah, so from a development standpoint, if people want to use SSH to remotely log into their Pi, or even log into the Pi directly like Rick Adams does, a lot of the compilers, development libraries, the tools, a lot of stuff that's already available in the community is on this system. And at the time I do my releases, I make sure those are all up to date. Now, one of the great things with the developers, now my early versions of the Pi, I was downloading all these things from source and compiling and installing them. Working with the various folks, these are now almost all the Coco development utilities are now available as repo packages where you can do apt get upgrade, and it just knows if there's a new version and it will automatically update your Raspberry Pi, just like any other OS update if you want to do it on your Raspberry Pi.
Cool.
So that part's making it very easy. Yep.
Now, can you show how you can reboot into Raspbian from the menu here? The GUI.
Would I have to switch out the SD card?
No.
Oh, you mean just go to a prompt?
Yeah. Well, no. On the menu, you can pick whether or not to go to the GUI or not. Next time you boot.
So what Ron's talking about, that's not a feature I've added. That's part of Raspbian, the OS.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Steve, if you were to go to the utilities menu and you go into Raspbian config, there's an option there that tells Raspbian to boot into X Windows. I have that disabled because I'm not using it, but Ron uses it for some things.
Yeah, I do it. I go in and I'll use it in there's a version of what's the name of the browser on there? You can actually go online with it.
Okay, so which one do I need to do?
Under boot options?
Boot options, yeah.
Okay, so but this is taking us a little bit outside of what the CocoPi project's doing here. But we could
do have
say,
a question, though.
Yeah,
are you able to run the emulator in Raspbian?
So with MAME, there's not even a version of MAME for X Windows on CocoPi. But for XROAR, I include both. There's actually a GUI version of XROAR that'll run in X Windows. However, the performance is it's close. It's probably 90% of what a real Coco 2 or 1 or even Dragon will work.
Okay.
But I don't use it. It's available on there, though.
Okay.
Well, I was poking around to see if I could find,
Yeah, there's a lot of hidden things just for stuff I work on that's in there. Yep.
Okay, I'm not going to do that to mine because I want to keep mine kind of how it is right now. But that's good to know. You can go into your Pi config and you can change your boot options if you want to boot into a GUI. What I would probably prefer to do, because I've got multiple micro SD cards, is I would probably just have a regular micro SD card that I just have Raspbian on and just swap out my memory sticks when I want to boot into Raspbian. To me, I look at the CocoPi as its own little thing, and I like to run it the way you have it going right now, Ron. More bare metal,
Yeah, a couple more things I'll talk about real quick for the utility side. For people that do their own custom tweaks, there's an option within the Raspberry Pi that if you plug in a removable media like a thumb drive into one of the USB ports, you can actually do a complete backup of your Raspberry Pi onto that USB drive. And if you then take that USB drive to your workstation using one of the tools available, like in Windows, you can dump it as an image. That image can be shared with anybody and written to another micro SD card, and they would boot up your exact version of what you've done. In essence, create another version of what is already available.
So you can clone your setup.
Yes, and then anyone that would do it, they would follow the same steps. They would resize their SD card image. Now, if you included the ROMs and software, that would all be there. Otherwise, you could remove those. But you can actually very easily create an exact copy of what you are currently running, which is great for backups.
And that's so important for the Raspberry Pi because it is a real computer. And if you lose power, you can corrupt that SD card.
Very easily. That you can't stress that enough. In the utilities menu, there is an option to shut it down or reboot, and that's the safest way to go. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
And one more thing, when you're buying a Raspberry Pi 3, make sure you get a proper power supply because it really needs at least 2.5 amps. I personally run mine at 3.5.
2.5 is minimum, bare minimum. Yep.
Yeah, you plug in a thumb drive, and you will get that little indicator light that you're under power.
Yes. I'm not trying to promote any company over another as far as buying it, but a lot of times when you buy Raspberry Pis, you can get them as kits, save a little more money. Some of the kits are good enough where they're giving you a properly rated power supply. So for folks that have questions on that, you can reach out to me as well. I'm happy to. But Steve's recommendation for even going a little higher than 2.5 is not a bad thing, especially if you start adding external hard drives like portable laptop drives or anything else, because the power requirements, they can add up. The only other thing I wanted to touch on with the utilities thing, and it may be important for some folks, is for cloud-based services, things like Google Drive, Dropbox. I've included utilities for those. There's actually stuff out there, command line ones, where you can actually upload files to your Google Drive and they'll automatically sync to your Pi. So let's say, for example, somebody like Simon wants to send me something to look at for a demo or whatever. I can actually instruct him to send it up to a cloud drive, and then that will sync to my Raspberry Pi, and I can instantly mount it either in DriveWire or locally through MAME's menu. So that's kind of nice for doing some collaboration quickly. The other thing that's in there too I wanted to mention is, what was it? There was the cloud drive, the backup. Oh my gosh, there was something else.
You got an IRC client on here.
There's an archive.
There's the world of yeah. I got the menu up on screen.
So that's something else. I'm not sure if folks are going to be using it, but basically there's a text-based web browser out there called Lynx. It's been around for years, and I figured, well, you know what? If somebody's got their Pi on the network and they can get on the internet, and they're in front of their Raspberry Pi, they don't have their workstation handy, they can actually browse to the Color Computer Archive, and you can navigate it through Lynx, and you can download software titles right to your
Here it is.
I know it's funny. I don't know if anyone's going to use it, but I figured, you know what? I'm going to add the links, and I've added links to some other neat sites for development purposes for the Coco. And yeah, you can go in there and you can just grab whatever you want. So,
you know, back in the day, I used Lynx to browse the internet.
Yeah. Gopher was popular for.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I even did that for my Coco too. I logged into a local provider here and ran KBCom or vTerm or something like that. So could you do that? Could you run one of the emulators with one of the VT52, VT100 compatible terminal programs and actually log into Lynx directly from there and actually download stuff right to the Coco image?
Oh yeah, you can SSH right into your, you can do all that. In fact, I SSH into my Coco all the time, the CocoPi.
Okay. Now we have Rick Adams doing a screen share, and Rick is an avid user of the retro CocoPi project for development. So take it away, Rick. You're muted still.
You know, Rick was one of the early adopters of this thing, and
Rick, you're muted.
Yeah, his feedback was so valuable, and then with Ron coming on board with it, they've been the most vocal with regards to things, and I appreciate that. I can't make it for everybody, but I'm certainly willing to do what I can to help people customize theirs as well. So
yeah, well, Rick just stopped screen sharing.
Hey, there's one other thing I might mention. On occasion, when I run graphics on my Pi, it gets hot, and I've gotten a little temperature gauge, so I put a fan next to it.
Yeah, so that's a good thing you brought that up as well. Full disclosure, and I do mention in the documentation, I do a slight overclock on the Raspberry Pi 3. Again, it's all for performance, and I do mention it. And one of the things I mention is because there's certain tolerances and variances built into all these things. Not everyone's exactly the same. Some are more, they're not as susceptible to temperature issues as others. So when I chose a case for mine, I have one that has a little teeny fan that blows right on top the Raspberry Pi, on top of the heat sinks to keep it cool. I've never had any issues. It doesn't draw much power, and the fan that my case has is extremely quiet. But that's something to be aware of. Not everybody wants a clunky fan next to their Raspberry Pi. A lot of people are using it without a fan, and I haven't heard of any issues. But if you have a very tight case without much airflow through it, and depending on what you're doing, it can heat it up.
Yeah,
sorry, guys.
Yeah, Rick's back. Yeah, that's the same case I have, Ron, but I have heat sinks on my chips. Do you get the little aluminum covers on all your chips too, Ron?
I don't think so, no. That's why I put the fan on.
Okay. And some of the kits that you can buy that come with the Raspberry Pi board, the power supply, the case, a lot of them come with those little heat sinks too.
Yeah. I would maybe go as if you're looking for a kit and you're looking for a power supply, not only look for your multiple amps, like your 3 amps or higher, but see if you can find one that's got an actual switch. Some of these little micro USB power supplies have a toggle switch, because if not, you've got to unplug it and plug it back in to power cycle the Pi. And I would imagine over time that is going to put stress on that connector. So maybe look for a toggle switch USB adapter.
What I did was I put mine on a power strip.
Okay.
So
yeah,
just use a switch on the power strip.
Yeah, I've got a clear case similar to yours, but mine's got a bunch of holes cut out in it. So mine's got cutouts where you can access all your pin head connectors and everything else too.
I put a metal bar underneath to lift it off the floor, so it's up in the air.
The other thing too.
Never mind.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing too about that micro USB power connector, it's not designed to go over 2.5, 3 amps. So don't think that a 5-volt version is going to help you that much more. Also, plugging it in, plugging it out, wears down the connections, and pretty soon what used to be able to go through there can't go through there anymore. And you're going to start to get that little indicator light that you're under power.
Is there a Coco case that someone makes for the Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, I have it. Yeah, I'll hold it up. Yeah, I believe it was possibly Glenn Hewlett who had done this.
It was. Glenn designed one based on the original Coco one. It's actually very, very neat. There is a project, or there's
the lighting in my camera is like freaking out right now.
Pretty white, but yeah, that's very nice.
It's kind of hard to see,
but it's a tight case. He did put ventilation in it, which does help. Yep.
Yeah, so it's
and would help more.
So yeah, but I found it was kind of hard to get access to everything with this case. So I actually won this in an auction, I think 2 years ago at Coco Fest. It's the 3D printed white Coco case. I like it, but I'm just kind of keeping it on a shelf as like a little knickknack. I found it was a little bit hard to gain access to all the ports and the power and the connections and everything, so it wasn't as serviceable, I found, for me, having my Pi inside this case. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It looks like a white Coco 1, although the lighting in here, you can't see the details. I don't know if I can get it any closer, if that's helping. There we go. Now you can see the keyboard. There you go. So here you can see the keyboard of it. Looks pretty cool. The little bar. It's even got a little RAM badge. It's got the ventilation on it, right?
It's an early Coco one.
An early Coco one, right? Because the badge is not centered.
It's also a big badge.
Mm-hmm. And then, you know, this is where you would see where your Raspberry Pi would basically go above those little round slots there for the ventilation. And then it does have some access in the back.
Hello, guys.
Yeah, Rick's here. Okay.
Okay. I did want to show you some things on my system, but I wasn't really intending to crash the video feed like that. I got lost, couldn't find my way back to the client. I was muted, and I couldn't figure out how to undo it, so I sort of crashed out of the call.
Okay, you're back. How about we do this? How about we'll take another quick commercial break, and then we'll get back with Rick Adams showing us some development stuff, because this is a long segment, but it's a good segment. I hope everybody's getting something out of it. Does that work for you, Rick? In about a minute and a half, we'll come back with you. Just stay there and be ready to share.
Sure. I hope I know what I'm doing when we do it.
Okay. So we're going to take a commercial break for about a minute and a half. We'll be back, and then Rick Adams is going to show us how he's developing on the Coco Pi. So we'll be back after these words.
Hello, I'm David Ladd. Thank you for watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading live CoCoTALK show.
No sound.
No words.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
CoCoTALK is brought to you in part by Placeblex Dietary Supplement. Placeblex. We think it works, so will you.
Hey guys, Stevie Stroh, and for almost a year now, we've been hosting a weekly live talk show on YouTube called CoCoTALK about an extremely obscure retro computer system from 1980. But in this time, we've figured out how to fine-tune the live streaming talk show format, and we've also figured out that people love to get together and talk about things that they enjoy and that they...
From Radio Shack, the TRS-80 Model 3, and at $200 off, it's a great value. Select from Radio Shack's huge program library to aid your children's education, plan your personal and household budgets, or to entertain with fast-action games. You can even learn to write programs. The TRS-80 Model 3, on sale for $7.99, only at Radio Shack and Radio Shack Computer Centers, the computer experts.
All right, we're back. Are we back? Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Hello.
Okay. All right, so Rick Adams is here, creator of Temple of ROM and other cool things.
Okay, let's see. Push share. Okay, there we go. So this will be really brief. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I am a command line guy, so I'm not running any of those menus or anything like that. right now I am SSH'd into it from my laptop. So you can see that I logged in, and I've made a couple of tweaks. I've changed the colors on the prompt, so it's in different colors and it looks all pretty and stuff. I also have some utilities that I've developed long ago. I can say, oh, now I'm typing and it's not doing it. There we go. So if I just say go temple, and then it just goes to here. I can go to anywhere in the file system, like say if I went to etc. Then I would say mark etc. Ron Klein is probably taking notes right now. And then if I wanted to get back there, I would just say go etc. So I'm going to go to Temple of Ram, and here are all the files having to do with that. So the make file is a file that has instructions on how to build it and do various things. So it's got all kinds of, all the LWASM command, and then the decb command to command, So the first line here, the LWASM will build it. Then the decb command will copy it into my drive0.dsk disk image. And when it does that, then thanks to DriveWire, it'll already be mounted on my color computer. So I can immediately go over to my color computer and run it. So Temple of Ram. So well, I can't actually run it because I'm in, it won't do anything graphical since I'm logged in remotely. It'll do it, but it'll do it downstairs where I am not at the moment.
Oh.
This is like, several rooms away and in the lower level of my house as opposed to the top level. So building Temple of Ram used to be like about 60 minutes worth of hard work with cassettes and things. And now I just type make, and it just, boom, it built. So we're all done. So,
that was it. That's done.
Yeah. So it's just amazing. So this is so much different than the old days, let me tell you. So now if I go up a level, so I'm like a command line guy. So, I don't do menus at all. I'm just, I'm just really manly and all that. So now you see we got bomb threat, Delphi term, OmniStar, Shanghai, and Temple of Ram. So if I go down to Shanghai, I can make Shanghai. I can just build it. Boom, it's built.
Wow.
So if I want to look at, what was it? Menus font.
Rick, I want to add something to this. So this is really neat.
Sure.
One thing that, I like the command line as well, but Rick's done some neat things with regards to syntax highlighting for VI.
Oh, yeah.
That's something you may want to show. And then the other thing I want to mention, too, is for people that are developers like Rick, things like the Nitrous 9 source code that's out in the repo, things like Fuzix that's out in the repo, a lot of these other projects that are out there, a lot of times, we're waiting to get the binary files already compiled on a disk image ready to go. But all the utilities needed to compile these projects are part of CocoPi. I make sure that gets added on there.
When I got my CocoPi, I started, okay, now we need to load in such and such, and get a hold of this distribution of such and such. And it's like, oh, that's already there. Okay, move on to the next thing on the list. Oh, that's already there also. So everything was there. LWASM, Toolshed tools, all that stuff was there. So now I'm looking at the one of the files for Shanghai, and so it's highlighting everything in different colors depending on what it is, which is really handy when you're working on things, because it's like, oh, that's not in the right color. It probably means I misspelled it.
So are you on a Linux machine separate from your Pi?
No, this is my Pi.
Oh, okay.
So I'm remoted into it, with an SSH session from my laptop.
All right, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron, it looks like he's in Windows, and then he's accessing his Pi that way.
Okay.
Correct. I'm trying to see where, oh, there we go. Shanghai.asm. So this was really fun. We recovered these files from a hard disk, a floppy disk. And so I was, in this case, I was able to get the actual source code to Shanghai, the original source code that I sent off to Activision. So there's all the credits and stuff, and it's like, yeah, I had forgotten all these people worked on it. And oh, that's the name of my project manager. I remember her first name was Sherry, but I didn't remember her last name. And then there's my contact at Tandy that I worked with on that project. So there's the actual thing. So
wow,
including
what a great piece of history there.
Yeah, yeah. And I won one of the floppy disks that has the physical copy of this on the auction too, a couple years ago. Yeah.
Yep. And the last Coco Fest, we made our second attempt at reading the source for Delphi term, my terminal program. And the previous, I think at Tandy Assembly, we had tried to read it. And it turned out when I got home, I found out the files were all corrupted. So we made a second attempt at Coco Fest, and we succeeded. So I got that. So I've shared that online recently. Because I'm not going to make any money from that, so it's like, oh, you want the source to Delphi term? Yeah, you can have that.
Cool.
So that's about it.
So yeah, it almost seems to me like, because I'm starting to cross that threshold where I'm going to need development environments, and it seems like a lot of these development tools are more Linux oriented. And rather than me trying to figure out how am I going to get Linux on my PC, am I going to run a virtual machine, am I going to do that? I've got Linux on my frickin' Raspberry Pi. So why not just use my Pi to start developing like you're doing and not have to reinvent a wheel that's already there. So I might start doing something like that too. I need a little bit of help just being pointed in the right direction on how to do it. But it kind of makes sense, and we saw how quick it was.
Mm-hmm.
And for my needs right now, since I'm only doing stuff in BASIC, I don't even need to worry about pushing it over to a real Coco for testing, because BASIC's going to work. If I ever got to the point where I'm doing some really heavy bare metal manipulation and assembly, then I would want to test it on hardware too. But for the short term, it seems like you could really speed up the cycle by doing it all through emulators, And,
right. Although I have a real Coco 3 to the right of my Coco Pi, so and it mounts on it instantly. So I can be, I can type, make to build it over here, and then I just turn around in my chair a little bit, and I'm running it on a real Coco 3.
Right.
So it's lightning fast. And then I have like tweaks to my Coco 3 Coco SDC so that it brings up a menu of, do you want to test your game? Do you want to run OS 9? Do you want to run this game, that game, the other game? So it's, you type 1. So I could be running my game. I could type escape to go back to the menu, and then type 1 to rerun the game. So I'm just make it, escape 1, and I'm running the new version of the game.
Wow. Just on real hardware.
Yeah, on real hardware. I did it on an emulator for a while, and then I got a real Coco 3, and I got that all up and running. And so I do it now. I do it with real hardware now.
Yeah, why not?
So you modified the SCDX file so that you can have a different menu.
Right.
I got DriveWire working recently using the flash area in the SDC by bringing up HBD DOS. I thought that was really cool to do.
Oh yeah, the flash commands are really cool. I don't totally understand them yet, but I know pretty much basically what they do, and it's pretty powerful.
It's a neat idea.
Yeah.
I think doesn't the Coco SDC already support DriveWire out of the box with SDC DOS?
Yeah.
I think there's some commands where you can mount DriveWire disks without having to switch DOSes.
Yeah, I haven't used those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but that's cool. So yeah, there's a lot of things we can do with CocoPi on the surface for the average consumer and user. It's just a really cool emulation platform that's pretty user friendly. And you can be up and running on a Coco 1, Coco 2, Coco 3, MC10, a variety of dragons. It will emulate multi-pack interfaces. It will emulate the speech and sound cartridge.
Game Master cartridge.
Game Master cartridge. It emulates. So if you're just looking for a fairly quick and easy way to have a Coco experience, I know some people are into, I got to have the real hardware. and I get it. But not everybody has the luxury of the space to do it, or the being able to find it on eBay and win the auction, or just being able to afford it. So if somebody wants a compact Coco experience, this might be a compelling, cost-effective thing to try.
You can take it with you traveling.
Yeah, yeah. And that actually got me thinking, because I've had this forever. I bought this thing probably a year ago, and I just don't know what the heck to do with it. So I've been waiting for Ron, and thank you, Ron, for finally, Ron Klein, for having some time to spend with us to properly explain it, because I'm just going to be the idiot trying to say, oh, yeah, I think you can do this, and I think you can do that, because I don't frickin' know what to do with it. But there's a lot of fun you can have with it. So I'm thinking when I go to VCF Midwest, I'm probably going to bring the Coco Pi to demo Cosmic Aliens. I was originally thinking I'll just do it from my laptop, but it's like, why waste my laptop? I can do it on the Coco Pi.
Pull it out of your pocket.
Yeah, and
it's a neat little thing. It fills a neat little niche. Just because you can do it on a Pi doesn't necessarily mean I'm advocating it over real hardware. I still prefer that as well. But for some people, it is a fast way to get up and running, to at least experience what the color computer can do to some extent. And all the other stuff, the development part of it, those are just bonuses. So I encourage anyone that's interested in this project, please make it your own. If there's custom things you want to do, share them, talk about them, whatever, because that's really the only way it's going to get better. I can only think of so many things before I'm like, well, it kind of fits what I need. But I'm always watching other people's projects. If there's something that can be incorporated into it, I'm going to look at it. I'll always talk to those folks, prior to that. But yeah, I encourage anyone, tinker with it, and maybe they'll come up with some better ideas on how to make it better.
Yeah, and I just went to the utilities menu and did the proper shutdown. So I used the menu option to shut down the Pi. So now my Pi is turned off gracefully, so I have not corrupted my SD card. No, it's neat. It's a neat project. There's a lot you can do with it. You can do as much or as little as you want. If you just want to tinker and play games and play Coco stuff, you can do that. If you want to develop, you can do that. If you want to learn Linux in a fairly safe environment, you can do that without having to waste a VM or dual boot or anything else. You can boot up Linux and learn Linux. If you want to start developing with the LWASMs and all these things I've been hearing about but have no idea how to use, they're there, and we could probably lean on some people to get some help in making it happen. Earlier, somebody had asked a question in the live chat. Jeff Arts says, if you wanted to start the GUI, could you just type in start X from the command prompt and load up the X Windows?
Yes,
client?
It's still there. Yeah, the X
still there.
is not removed. It's all still there.
Okay, so instead of having to go through that menu option and reboot into GUI, you could just type in start X.
Yep.
Okay.
And then how do you get out of it?
Stop X. I don't know.
There's an option
you have to reboot.
To reboot. And you can
okay, so then you reboot from the GUI, and it will default boot into... so that might be a little cool thing, too, is just on your menu, if you want, especially if you want to do a DIY Ron Delvaux, if you want to try to edit the menu to add an option to load the
I probably wouldn't do that.
Well, I was volunteering you because I wasn't going to try it.
Yeah, the way it is fine. One other thing I might say is on the physical Coco, when you load up a graphic viewing program and you want to put a disk in to see the files on it, and then you want to see another disk, you have to recycle. On this emulator, because it's menu driven with is it MAME? Yeah, you can bring up the graphics program and then just keep changing out the drive one and see different pictures on different ones without having to keep cycling, turning off, loading the program in again. You know what I mean? It's a whole lot easier.
Easier to flip through the discs?
Yeah, if anyone has ever done anything like that, probably not. I'm maybe the only one, but something you can think about. I have lots and lots of pictures, so.
No, that's cool.
Okay, let's go over a couple of things that they absolutely should do if they're going to get themselves a Raspberry Pi. We kind of touched about it for a second or two, but Ron, from your point of view?
Oh, about the Pi?
Yeah. What should they look for in their Pi package they're going to buy?
Oh, well, you touched on the biggest one, which is the power supply. They got to make sure they get the right power supply. 2.5 amp is minimum. If you think you're going to be running a lot of external devices off the USB ports, the 3 amp one would be a good choice, or 3.5. The other thing is, from an SD card perspective, it's in the documentation as well. I suggest at least a class 10 rated card for speed. SD card speed is everything on this, and it can affect performance.
Actually, I'm going to interrupt you on that. Class 4 is actually the fastest for Raspberry Pi. Because what happened is when they went to class 10, it's generally faster if you're loading in or writing a large amount of data. But when you're doing small segments, it's slower.
Wow, I'll have to check that. Because most of the cards I'm using are higher capacity, and they even have ratings now that are different than they went to 10, and now there's they lowered the number again because there's another class of card. And that may be what I don't know if that's what you're talking about or not, but
well, it's the old class 4. The diehards recommended. They said they were getting slower operations. But the thing is, the advantage of the class 10s is there's more of a manufacturer, they're a little beefier, and they may actually last longer. And that's another thing too, is that SD cards are not going to last forever. They're going to wear because the Raspberry Pi does page swapping.
Yes.
And you're going to wear out your card. So when you get a card, don't buy one, buy several.
Yeah.
So you got your backup. And then also buy one of those, if you don't have an extra thumb drive around, buy another thumb drive that's got at least the size of your cards.
Yeah, you would also need to have an SD card reader adapter doohickey too for your computer, right? And I've got one of that. I've got a USB 3.0.
This is what I use when I do a backup of the Pi before I make a distro. I don't know if anyone can see this, but basically, it's
that's what I got too.
I stick the SD card in, and that's what I used for the backup.
Yep.
Yeah, mine's pretty similar to that too.
It's got backup from the network right onto your PC.
Right.
Yeah. But definitely buy extra cards. Plan on replacing your cards depending on how much you use your Raspberry Pi every couple of years, if not sooner.
Yeah. Hey, SD Ron. Cards are dirt cheap.
Hey, Ron.
Yes.
If you boot this into the little menus and then use Coco 3 and you do your little programs with it and stuff, you're not really using a lot of swap space, are you, on the card?
No, but the OS is doing stuff as part of it. One of the things that Steve brings up some good points. I actually have even tinkered with disabling the swap file at all. So the Raspberry Pi is just using RAM. Now, that's not always the right thing to do. And on this distro, I'm not doing it, but I've been experimenting with that. Because if you do large compiles, like the Nitrous 9 repo, I stopped doing that on the SD card because you're going to kill it. Same with MAME. I will not do it on the SD card. There's just too much I/O going on with that. So I'll either hook up an external hard drive and use that and tell the swap space to use the external hard drive. I'm getting a little technical here. Or I've recently started experimenting, for anyone interested, cross-platform compiling on my main workstation using a product called QEMU. I won't go into it now, but they have ARM plugins for that. So I can actually compile MAME, which was taking, no kidding, on the Raspberry Pi, 14 hours to compile MAME.
Oh, my God.
I can do it in about 20 minutes on my workstation right now.
Wow.
Yeah, and then copy it over and it works.
I mean, honestly, even 20 minutes sounds like an eternity when you're doing something on a computer. You know, we're so spoiled by things being fast nowadays, but compared to 14 hours, 20 minutes is light speed.
As you were saying, you're overclocking the Raspberry Pi. So getting one that's got the heat sinks and the fans is an excellent idea.
Yes, and that's why I recommend it in the documentation. It's a slight overclock. It's not much. Now, with the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, that overclock is not needed. It's already a couple 100 megahertz faster, I believe, and that's all I was doing with the regular 3. So for people that want to use the 3B Plus, it can just be left as is.
Well, isn't there like 1 gig of RAM in it?
The biggest, I don't remember if there's more memory in the 3B Plus. I know the biggest thing was the Wi-Fi speed. I'm not a big fan of the Raspberry Pi 3 Wi-Fi speed, but they've improved that dramatically in the latest version of the Raspberry Pi. But the RAM, I don't know. Steve, do you know if they? I'd have to look at the specs again.
No idea.
Yeah, but staying on the SD cards for using in this project, what size do you recommend?
Well, with the next release, I mean, I'm gonna start telling people. I know it seems kind of high. I'm telling people, 32 gig.
So 3264 would be fine.
Oh yes, yeah.
I got 32 myself.
Yep, 16 is just, if you have 16, the image will fit, but you have almost no space left on it. That's why I recommend now. When I first released it a couple years ago, I was starting with an 8 gig image, and it was barely fitting, but it was working. And I tried to keep the distribution size low, and I was telling people, get a 16 gig. Now I'm just past, unfortunately, I don't have an increment of going 24. I got to jump right to the next one, which is 32. But the prices have come down on these micro SD cards, so that's what I'm suggesting.
My favorite is 32. I've tried 64, and that's very nice, but it's really way more storage than I really need.
Yep.
And backing up a 64 gigabyte card is really annoying. So I kind of stick with 32 these days.
Now, there is an advantage to going to quite a bit more storage, is the fact that the system that stores data on the card has more places to put it in that hasn't been written to that many times.
So elongate the life of your SSD.
Because it does wear evening. So it can almost double, triple the life of your card.
And the one thing I want to mention too, as long as we're talking about SD card storage, that backup feature that I have, when it backs it up, you put the smallest SD card in that it'll just fit on. One of the options when you go to back up, it'll tell you how much space it'll use. So for example, I may have a 64 gig card. I do not want to back up a 64 gig image. It's not actually backing up all the empty space, but the issue is when you go to make an image of the card, it's going to make it the size of the card you're using. So what I do is I find the smallest SD card. I always keep a smaller one available, and I image it to that. So when I eventually zip that up and put it online to the mirrors for distribution, I'm trying to limit that size.
Right.
So if you had a 64 gig card and you installed the image,
yep,
would you necessarily have to, use that shrinkage program?
Oh,
to expand it.
Yeah.
Yes, because right now the way it's the image is backed up, the one that's available now, it's on a 16. I think it's a 16 gig image. It just fits on there. So you want to expand that file system. Otherwise, when you write it to that 64 gig card, it's only going to use 16 gig of it. It's not going to know to expand it, and you're going to have issues with it not working correctly because it can't write all the temp files out that it needs to.
Okay.
Cool. Well, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about this. I know we could spend a lot more because there's a lot it can do, but hopefully we've whet the appetite for people who want to get in on this. And I know we say this quite a bit, but we mention Discord all the time, right? So we have our Discord server, which is like our chat server, and there is a CocoPi chat room in Discord. And so for people who want to get this project going and do this project, you can put some questions out there in the Discord chat and leverage the collective knowledge of everybody else who's working on the project to get some help with it.
Yeah, this is a project that I really want to get going here soon. I've made a few attempts at it. Didn't quite work out the way I wanted to, so I'm going to try it again here. And I've got a 3B, and yeah, going to give it a shot. Got 32 gig micro SD, so I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and again, I want to note that the current image available is 3 only, and then the new one coming out in a couple weeks will be 3B plus compatible as well.
Okay, I got another question.
Yes.
I tried to unplug my HDMI from this one, and I took it in the living room to my TV, plugged it in, and I got no picture. Why is that?
Okay, couple things. The biggest thing is some TVs aren't gonna change. They won't support the resolution of 640 by 480. I'm not sure how old the TV is, because what's happening is there is a file on the Raspberry Pi. It's called /boot/config. And it's a dangerous file to go into if you don't know what you're doing. But basically, I'm forcing a 640 by 480 resolution. So if your TV or monitor doesn't support that over HDMI, it's not gonna. It won't display anything.
So it's just blank.
Now, yes. Now you can remove that restriction and let it go back to the 1080p resolution.
Well, let me ask you this: if I went into the Raspberry, Raspbian, GUI, it would work, but not necessarily with the
Coco Pi.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's again, not all TVs support that resolution. The ones I've used all support it, but I have heard of a couple people where it's like it just won't go down to 640 by 480.
Okay.
No. The problem I ran into was that because I'm running mine through a HDMI switch box, so I've got 5-way switcher, and then that runs into the HDMI capture. That's how I'm able to see it and show it to you guys. What I found was my switch box had to be on the source before I powered up the Coco Pi. So like if your TV was not turned on and your TV was not switched to the right source of that HDMI input, that may have prevented the Coco Pi from detecting your display. And because there's a little plug and play handshake that goes on, so it knows, well, what resolutions does this screen support? Can we sync and all these things like that? So you need to have your TV on and set to the right input before you plug in and turn on your Pi. That can also make a difference.
Yeah, it didn't in my case.
Yeah, and for people that want to experiment, that when you start getting into the Raspberry Pi, it's kind of beyond the scope of this discussion. But there is a composite out on the GPIO header, and you can enable that, and people can actually hook up older monitors that are using RCA video. And it won't. You're not going to have the same resolution, but it will
Where
work.
is that at? On the things that stick
on
up?
the top of the Raspberry Pi, there's a thing called the GPIO header. It's a
Oh, yeah.
double row of pins. There's actually an additional serial port on there. There's composite output for video. There's actually a lot of things you can do with the Raspberry Pi that go well beyond this project.
Is that where you hook a camera to it?
Yes, that camera can go on there as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
A lot of stuff, yeah. Yeah, it's
Cool.
cool. So we're going to kind of wrap it up, but I figure we got 30 people watching us right now. We've got a bunch of people in the panel. So for all of us right now who have seen this so far, do we have any comments, suggestions, or questions for Ron Klein right now, who is kind of our subject matter expert on this right now? Because I know Ron, it's great that you're here, Ron. I know you're busy, and so now that we have you, anybody who's been dying to ask Ron Klein some questions, anybody got questions for Ron?
I don't have answers for it all. There's a lot of other people that have much more knowledge than I do on the Pi and everything. I'm winging it, but I learn every time I tinker with it. I learn something new.
All right, so Jeff Arts is saying that there's also like a 1/8 inch jack that's called a TRRS jack, which has composite video on there too. I was wondering about that. It looks like a headphone jack on your Coco Pi. It's right next to the HDMI port.
Oh yeah, good
so
point.
There is a 1/8 inch jack, and does that split out to like audio and video?
Audio, yes. Yep.
Audio and video. And the other thing is the RR is 2 rings, so it's one of those jacks that has not 3 but 4 spots on it.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that means you get like your red, white, and yellow coming out of it?
Yes.
So it's a 3 conductor pole that would go in there. It would be like the little silver.
Well, it's 3 conductor plus ground.
Okay.
So how can we use that with a Coco?
You don't use it with a Coco.
You can use it with a Pi, though.
Use it with a Pi and a standard TV.
Now, am I correct? You can see, the mixture of colors with the Coco 2 on the Pi.
You're talking about the artifact colors?
Yeah, the artifact colors.
MAME emulates that.
Yes, that's built into MAME. Yep.
Yeah, because it looks good.
Yep. Yeah.
I have a question, if I may.
Go ahead, Diego.
I never got a Raspberry Pi. From the start, it didn't seem powerful enough to me. And like a year ago or something, somebody pointed me to something called Pine 64. It's kind of the same thing. It's I think I have it, yeah, over here. Let's see if I can show it. You know, it has Wi-Fi. It's a 64-bit CPU, and you know, it's pretty nice. It's kind of like a super Raspberry Pi, but of course, it doesn't. It won't run the same distributions that Raspberry Pi. So I was wondering, how difficult would it be to adapt these the contents of this distribution to another, I'm going to guess, Debian-based Linux?
I think that's a great question. So I think a lot of the compilers and things like that can probably be ported over or will compile. The issue becomes, and I've looked at a lot of these other single board computers because I'm always looking for something inexpensive that's going to give me the performance I want. And what I found is that while the specs are on some of these single board computers are much more, well, they're much better than what you see on like the current Raspberry Pi offerings. It's the community and the supporting software that goes with it that's just not up to the same speed. So for example, accelerated video, I can't get the SDL2 libraries on some of these other platforms to work, and without that, MAME's dead in the water. It's just not going to run right. That doesn't mean I stopped looking. That Pine 64 has been out for a little while, and it is a very powerful machine, and there's some neat things that take advantage of it. But right now, if I can't get MAME to work on it, it's just not on my radar. And I am considering XROAR as well, but then you give up the Coco 3 emulation part of it. So that's why I haven't pursued them anymore. I do try to track progress on some of these other ones. Like you said, there's other Raspbian-based distributions that are out there that'll run. Heck, there's even versions of Windows. There's other Linux distributions that are available. But again, unless I can get MAME to compile, that's kind of compile and run admirably enough where it's going to do accurate emulation. I don't consider it right now. So,
well, you can always wait for Raspberry Pi 4.
Yeah, I don't know if they've even made any announcements about that, with the B+ being somewhat new. That's probably a year out, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it is.
I think these same questions probably come up, like even in the RetroPie communities, like because everybody wants to take RetroPie to another level, you know, technologically speaking, but there's so much dependencies on Raspbian and the drivers and stuff that I would imagine it's probably hard just to transplant that to a new, you know, like you say, Ron, it might be better technologically. The specs might be better, but if you don't have the OS support and the driver support and the compatibility, then it doesn't matter how good the hardware is.
Well, there's that XU4 board. I forget the company that makes it, and that's actually very, very powerful. And they actually have a version of RetroPie that's been ported to it, and it actually runs very well with a lot of the emulators they have for Super Nintendo and things like that.
Yeah.
But again, the biggest issue, and that's what really got me started on this project, is I want the latest version of MAME, bugs and all, because it goes forward and back with regards to issues. We all know the stories, but the RetroPie project, they're just not doing compiles on the latest versions of MAME. They've kind of held back to a kind of a standard where it's going to work, and I want the latest versions. And that's,
right. And one of the things we didn't show, but you have in the menu of the CocoPi where you can choose what version of MAME you want to run. And there's a handful of versions in there, right? So you can go from the latest to 3 or 4 versions back. So if there is some type of compatibility issue, we can tweak that in the settings, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a great point, because we've known that certain versions of MAME will break something, and I got tired of like, I don't want to give this up. So I'm like, you know what? They don't take up a ton of space, the binaries. So yeah, there's a menu option. I have about a dozen versions of MAME on there with various features, and when you select the default, all the menus then that use MAME will use that default, and you can quickly configure it back if you'd like.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. A lot of thought has gone on to this. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff in there. Again, we haven't scratched the surface, but I would suggest to anybody, you know, join our Discord server. There's a link to the Discord server in the description of this video. go to imacoconut.com, go to downloads. That'll get you to the page where you can download the image, and the image will get updated in a couple of weeks. There's documentation there. It's a Google Doc, so it'll get updated. So just save those links and look for the changes in the documentation. And, you know, reach out to us on Discord, because more than one person's using it right now. We've got Ron Delvaux using it. We've got Rick Adams using it. I'm going to start using it now. You know, to me, I think so, and I don't want to get. I'm trying to wrap this up, but I'll just say this too. There's a few things again beyond the scope of this right now, but because it's Raspberry Pi, you can pair Bluetooth keyboards to it. You can pair Bluetooth controllers to it, and that's not necessarily completely user friendly, because some of these things now we have to get kind of Linuxy, and not all of us are Linuxy type folks. I'm a Windows guy. I'm not a Linuxy guy. So there are a few things that, you know, when you want to do some of off the script type things, there will be some expertise we can lean on, saying, hey, how, like I know Ron Klein, you've got a Bluetooth keyboard paired to yours, right? You've shown us that little green keyboard.
I had an old Coco 3 case I got years ago. And I put it in there, and Chris Hawks, who's an old member of the Coco community, and actually he's the one that did a Coco Pi project years ago with an original original Raspberry Pi. And he made a really cool keyboard adapter to take a real Coco keyboard with the ribbon cable, and run it through a Teensy controller, and then hook it up to your Raspberry Pi via USB. So my Coco case, my Coco 3 case, has a Coco 3 keyboard and a Raspberry Pi in it, and that's what I'm using. But I don't always want to use that keyboard, so I have a little Bluetooth keyboard off to the side, and I can quickly type on that, and you can use both keyboards at the same time, but it's kind of a nice little feature.
Is that the one behind your head?
No, that's what is that? That's a Coco. Geez, I'm backward with the mirror. That's a Coco 2 back there.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a Coco 2. And an MC10.
Yeah. Now, of course, we got to have the MC10.
Yeah.
All right. So we any other last minute questions or comments from the peanut gallery on this before we move on?
I got one last one.
Okay.
Do you have the ability to put other machines on this device?
Yes, and you found a couple of them. So, yeah, I'm kind of a closet Atari 800 XL and TI 99 emulation user. I actually have one of each of those real computers too. They were not part of my original. The TI was after the Coco. The Atari was not. I just had an interest in them, and I do experiment with it. I have MAME. It runs it. So on the version that I use, I actually have the ROM images needed to run the Atari 800 and the TI.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
And if you want to run, by the way, if you want to use it like RetroPie and add ROM images for Donkey Kong and all the other arcade stuff, MAME will run it. It's there.
Yeah. So you're talking about having it on the same SD card too, Ron Delvaux, where you can. And so really at this point it becomes, you know, they're just menu options, and what the menu option is doing is basically, you know, from a command line, you could type in MAME space Coco 2, and that launches the Coco 2 image. You type in MAME space Coco 2B, it launches the second one. So you could type in like MAME space TI 99 or whatever the name of that ROM image is, right? So you could, from a command prompt, launch MAME and the name of the ROM that supports, you know, that runs that system. So yeah, theoretically, CocoPi could emulate a bunch of other systems, but Ron's kind of got it focused on Coco stuff. But there more things could be added that you could just launch manually through the command line, or if you wanted to get fancy and update the menus, you could add more menu options to it as well.
Yep.
Because it's running MAME, it will theoretically run anything MAME runs. So like you said, we could run arcade games on this too, right?
Now, not everything will run at full speed, but yeah, it'll.
Yeah.
If you have the images, it'll try to load them anyway. Yep.
Yeah. Cool stuff. So who in the panel right now has not used CocoPi and learned something new today?
I have not, and I have learned stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't used it, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, cool.
Learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might set it up as another option when we get into the part of the assembly learning series as one of our assemblers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I look at it as it's kind of cool for me because I know enough about Linux to be dangerous. You know, I understand command prompts because I grew up on the Coco and on DOS. So I understand the concept of the CLI, but I am not Linux savvy. I do understand literally a handful of commands. I can count on probably 3 fingers the amount of Linux commands I know.
Yes. Same here.
PWD, LS, things like that, CD, chmod. I always loved the chmod, reminding me of Michael Jackson. Chmod, whoo! So there's a handful of Linux things I know, but that's about it. So I could just tinker around at my own convenience and become more Linux savvy over time on my Coco Pi and not have to waste a VM or real hardware, you know. So that's another benefit.
Try and blow it up.
Try and blow it up. Make sure you back up that SD card. All right. Well, the show is not over, but we're going to end this segment. Tom C says, "Don't fear the Linux." So we're not going to end the show, but we're going to end this segment. We're going to take another commercial break because I got to take a biological break myself, and we'll be back. And Nick, are you still awake, Nick Marentes, to talk about the Gunstar and the core dump and everything?
Is it running a bit late though? I don't know if you want to leave it for next week.
I mean, I'm fine if you guys are fine.
Oh, I can give it a shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going on 3 hours, but it's been good. It's been a good time. We've learned a lot on this Coco Pi, and I think it was time well spent. Yeah. So I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on our follow-up items, so we could probably squeeze things in another 15 minutes if that works, everybody.
Well, what's good about this is you can always play it back if you miss something and you get a new machine in front of you. And how did he say to do that? You know.
Yeah. And we need to. And speaking of playbacks, when we come back from the break, we need to talk about last week a little bit too. So, all right, we're gonna take a break. I'm gonna go potty. I'm gonna go drop off a Grant Leedy, and we'll be back here in just a couple of minutes, folks.
That's what we need to know.
You know, Dave is not here. It's always me.
God.
Hi, it's Ron Dovo, Timberman, and this is CocoTALK.
We'll return after these messages.
Hi, I'm Bruce Moore, and this is Jacob Moore. Gotcha. And we are the Forest of Doom guys, and the Coco Forever guys, and we're at Coco Fest, and we love Stevie Stroh.
What if, knowing what I know now, I could go back in time, join Tandy Corporation, and change the course of history? Coco Forever.
How does it feel? I'm still believing.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me. It's Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. You know, gameplay. To get your copy of a Gameplay Goodness Color Computer Gaming DVD today, head on over to 8bit256.com. There you will find several DVDs featuring color computer gameplay videos by the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. So to get your very own copy of a Gameplay Goodness Color Computer Gaming DVD, head on over to the Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com and tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you. That's right. Mention my name, you'll get a good seat.
Let the Radio Shack TRS-80 put the world of color computing into your home. Instant loading program packs turn any color TV into an exciting game arcade. And there's more. The color computer is an educational aid, a home management tool, and up-to-the-minute electronic information service. The programmable, expandable TRS-80 color computer from $399 only at Radio Shack, the biggest name in little computers.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
There we go. And we are back.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody. I think that was a good segment. I enjoyed it, and it's long overdue. We've been talking about it. We've been hearing about it. We've been dreaming about it, and we now know a little bit more about the Coco Pi, and it's cool, and it's good. So hopefully we've generated some interest. I think it's kind of like the Goldilocks, because you have on the one hand, I want to have real hardware. And that's great when you can. On the other hand, you've got these virtual hardware like your FPGAs, right? But the FPGAs cost several $100s. It's not a low point of entry to get into that emulated hardware. So then you got the Coco Pi, and for, you know, if you buy the whole kit with a case and a fan and a heat sink and a power adapter, you're looking at maybe $50, right? And then you've got a Raspberry Pi that can not only run the Coco Pi, but you can run RetroPie, which is, you know, you download the RetroPie images. You can run Raspbian and play with Linux and everything else. So for $50, you got yourself a pretty cool toy that you have a lot of things you can do with. And I've actually the micro SD cards are dirt cheap, right? So I've got a little plastic holder, and I've got a whole bunch of little micro SD cards, and I can just pop in different cards and give my Raspberry Pi a different identity if I want to try different things with it. It's a low cost of entry. It's a pretty cheap little toy, and it's pretty powerful. So I would encourage everybody, you know, if you're on the fence, you know, if you got $50 to spare, you know, give it a shot.
And on Facebook, there's a Coco Pi group.
Yeah, because we don't have, Ron Klein has not quite reached the limit of Facebook groups that can be created yet. So, I mean, Ron Delvaux, Ron Delvaux, yeah. So,
created that one.
Yeah, so Ron Delvaux is, if you know, he'll find a new group to create for another reason.
I'm just waiting for the Coco cassette cable group to start.
I want to join the Coco dust cover collectors group whenever you can get one of those. Show us your Coco dust cover.
You took it away from me.
Oh, look at that.
Greg comes to the rescue.
Yeah.
So
one of the things on our news item this week is our very own Nick Marentes from Australia, who's working on his latest game, Funstar, available on ROM cartridge. He's got Funstar, yes. So Nick's got his latest development blog, and so we're going to take this opportunity to do our new little segment here where we talk about software, and we've got a cool little graphic and musical clip to play. So are we ready for the core dump, everybody?
Let's take a dump.
Let's take a dump, everybody. And there we go. It is time for Core Dump featuring Nick Marentes. Good day, Nick.
Good day, everyone. Yes. Well, I don't know if you've all read the web page so far, but I open up by saying that this project has gone into the feature creep stage. That uncontrollable urge to keep adding more features into the thing. And when I realized that the whole purpose of this music program, game music creator that I've done, was to create a little simple program just so I can put music together in my game Gunstar. Unfortunately, I got carried away and I just wanted to, make it almost commercial grade if I could. So I sidetracked myself, but it's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot about, music in general and how to create music on the color computer. I've written a routine that I can now put into my games. So I finally decided I'm going to put an end to my feature creep. I mean, there's still things I want to add to the program, but I figured I've got enough in there to do what I set out to do, and that is to create a little editor for the music. Now, I don't know if Steve's got the web page up there at the moment, so I don't know if that's coming through too well. That picture actually is a screenshot of the latest version of my game music creator, but I did a version of the screenshot that has scan lines, and it doesn't seem to come up too well. I might have to redo it with the version that's got no scan lines, because it gets all broken up on the screen here. But as you can see, that's the current final last version until the next one. But
So it's just basically a 4-voice music program. It just uses square waves so that it's not doing anything super spectacular, but it does do envelope for all the sounds. So in other words, you can vary the rise time of a sound and the fade time. So it's a bit more than just the beepy type sounds. As of this version, I've also added a feature on channel 4, voice number 4, whereby you can actually swap out the 4th square wave generator for a noise generator. So you can get a sort of a percussive sound. It's a bit more of a gunshot more than anything else, but it gives a bit of a percussive sound. So that's one of the main things I wanted to add in there. So the website explains exactly just the basics of the user interface on screen. And then I go a bit further down and explain just a general block diagram of how the program works. And basically all it is, as you can see on the screen there, there's a interrupt-driven FIRQ routine, which is the engine of the whole program. It sort of works as if it's a sound chip. It's always running. When I started, it's running constantly, creating 4 square waves. There's 4 little routines, each one creating a square wave, depending on the frequency I tell it to run at. They're running all the time. Though the outputs of each of those 4 routines is then fed into a envelope subroutine, and each one has a separate setting for that. So that's where the rise time and the fall time volume of that particular square wave will be, and each of the 4 channels has that envelope control. And then the output, of course, is all brought together, mixed together into one channel, and out it comes to the speaker. So fairly simple, but it seems to work quite well, and the sound quality is not bad. As I said, it just uses square waves, so there's nothing fancy. But I have found that by combining the playback of, say, 2 square waves together, they will interact and create harmonics, and you can create chords as well, and that makes the sound more interesting. So it does involve having to utilize 2 or more. You can use all 4 channels together, mixed together if you want. And it just makes for a more interesting sound. And now that I've added the noise in there, you've got an extra element as well. So hopefully the finished sound of music will sound all right for something that doesn't use a sound chip.
Right. I've got your YouTube video of the 2-voice Frogger if you want me to play that.
Yeah, well, I haven't got finished any compositions to show it off properly, but you can show the little demo Frogger. Frogger 2 is the better one to use, which will come up after this. I don't know if you're sharing sound yet. Oh, there it is. So that one's just using 2 voices. The next one combines 2 voices. Well, it uses 3 voices, but it combines 2 of them to give a more interesting sound.
Yeah.
Here and there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So yeah, that was just a simple little test I put together to see if the whole damn thing works. And next step is to orchestrate my own tune that's, epic and grand for the game itself. So that's the next project. And that's the status so far for my game music creator, or my Gunstar.
That's awesome. Yeah, because we need more uses of the initials GMC to further confuse the community.
Yeah, so that's that. Another thing I thought we might want to talk about is now that we've got Diego on the line, is maybe get an update from the last time when we had on Core Dump. We were talking about him optimizing his basic program for speed. I was just wondering if he's tried tried out some of the suggestions. If you got anywhere with that, Diego, if you're there.
Yep. Yeah, I did try some of them, and also Paul also gave me he created a machine language routine that tries to sync the hput command with the video refresh, which does make it look a little bit better. So what I did is I added that. I was able to clean up the code a bit to go a bit faster, and I'm also skipping every second frame of drawing the cat, so it actually keeps the image a bit longer on the screen, and all of that has helped make the flicker not so bad without actually slowing down the movement of the cat, because it's still moving. The graphics, the positions are still being updated. There's still collision detecting and everything going on. It's just that I'm not putting the extra graphic on the screen. So the flight time, let's say, of the cat, it's still the same when you're playing it. But since it draws the frames not so often, the flicker is less. And with all the other things, even with that extra weight there, it's going almost as fast as it was before without that extra weight.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good. Another thing that's popped up on the Facebook page is I think it was uploaded by Ron there, a game called GNOME.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing about that game is it was done using CBasic, which is the basic compiler, which is available on the Coco archive site. And yeah, that sort of gives an example of what can be done with with the CBasic compiler, and it doesn't look too bad for basic. So that's another area we should start looking into. I'm actually interested in trying it out later on. Or I'm overlaying too many projects here, but that'd be good because it doesn't allow you to just take a standard basic program, of course, and just run it through CBasic and bang, there's your machine code version. It is almost like learning another basic, which is very much tied in to be similar to the standard ROM basic. But at least, you know, if you learn to use its syntax, then create your basic programs in that, and then you can compile it to be semi-machine language. But yeah, just looking at the GNOME game, I mean, that's certainly a lot better than just what raw basic does. So that's another good thing to consider. And maybe Steve, you might want to then redo your program, a new version, a sequel.
Oh, absolutely.
Basic even, and do the same thing and just compare it. You might end up finding it's closer to machine language then.
I think it'd be a good idea for us to cover some of these compilers and stuff. Like there's ML Basic, there's C Basic, Graph Express, which are all meant for writing games and speeding up the graphics and adding multi-voice sound support. And that'd be a good topic to cover occasionally on Core Dump.
Yeah. And I think the C Basic compiler is probably the better one if you have a Coco 3, because that's what it was written for. So it supports the high res and the color.
Yeah, ML Basic 2 does, and Graph Express obviously does because it's Coco 3 only as well.
Oh, right. Graphic Express.
I got a question. How did you know it was made with that C Basic?
Someone, I put a message up there asking whether it was a basic program, and someone replied, said it's in C Basic. And apparently that author has done a few programs.
Yeah, Mike Snyder.
Mike Snyder, that's him, yeah. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. A good way of seeing the what a basic compiler could do on a color computer.
And there's also the other tool, the what's it called? This DinoSprite.
Yep.
DinoSprite's another one.
I haven't seen anyone. I mean, it's very good as well, but I don't think you can program in BASIC on that though. That's more of a library.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, but and there's other one that Karen had talked about too. There's the arcade game development platform that there's talks of getting it ported over to run on the Dragon and on the Coco, because that is kind of like a universal game engine that people have been writing stuff for like the Spectrum and other systems. And if we can get that to run on the Coco, you could take the same games that were developed in other systems and just, you know, rerun them through and output it as a new Coco game. So if they can get that project finished, matter of fact, here, I'll just pull it up on the screen here real quick. I forgot exactly what it's called. I'm going to screw it up. But it's actually called, okay, AGD, right? So Arcade Game Designer, right? So it was originally developed for the Spectrum, and they're looking to get some people to help take this tool and convert it to run on the Coco. Did the Spectrum have the same display generator as the Coco?
No.
Nope. No? Okay. So I guess it needs to be adapted to work on a VDG, and I guess there are some people who are working on it. But this almost becomes like, you know, the Infocom interpreter, where if you can get an Infocom interpreter for the Coco, you can play the games. This is a similar concept here, where it's kind of like a game engine interpreter compiler tool, and if we can get that tool to run on the 6809 with the VDG graphics, there's a library of games already out there that could be instantly made Coco and Dragon games, as well as giving us a tool to develop new things, you know, arcade game designer. So there's some promise there too. I think it's also probably worth mentioning too that John Linville has been showing off the cross compiler he's working on.
That, tiny basic
a tiny basic that will, you know, create machine code for the MC10 and soon for the Coco. So I almost think
Brett's doing a version of that for Physix as well.
Right. So there is some interesting developments in the area of BASIC, and I would definitely be in favor of doing it on a modern PC, kind of like what I'm doing now. I'm using a PC editor to work on my BASIC game for Cosmic Aliens, and then just pushing that over to a virtual, an emulated Coco. I would love to be able to compile something where I write the source code on a PC, hit a button, and 2 seconds later it's ready to run on a Coco or an emulator, you know.
Steve, did you see that Xenix game that I posted?
Yeah.
Isn't that fast?
Oh yeah, that's assembly language. Yeah, wow. That's Coco 3. Yeah,
and just really dynamic game.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. We had mentioned before, and it's probably a good topic, and we'll probably have that a focus of a future show, but a show dedicated to the different development tools and environments that people are using. So we can look at things like, you know, Toolshed, LWASM, IDEs, cross compilers. We probably need to do that, and these are things I am slowly getting interested in myself. So I'm kind of on my journey of discovery, and I've got Ron Klein helping me, and I got a few people helping me, John Strong. So I have the Roger Taylor one, the Phoenix IDE, but I haven't found any one single solution right now that is like the silver bullet, but I think we're close with one that Ron's working on. So it'll be interesting to have everybody, and everybody's got their own preferences of how they work and what they use. So it'd be interesting to get this meeting of the minds of people who are using development processes and share that. Yeah, the Coco Dream Team, right? So that'll probably be a future topic, and I think that'll probably be an interesting topic.
Yeah, and one last thing for the core dump segment, and so I'll dump some more of my core. That's it. I was waiting for the soundbite. I was also just thinking the other day, I read somewhere that someone was talking about the Commodore 64 was discontinued in 1993, I think it was. And that's around about the same time as the Coco was discontinued from Radio Shack, wasn't it? 92, 93. And it just occurred to me, 92, I thought. Was it 92? Anyway, it just occurred to me. I said, well, here we are knocking Tandy and saying all the bad things that Tandy did. And then I thought, well, we should really give them credit for actually holding on to the computer for as long as they did. Commodore are the only other ones whereby in 1992 you could still buy an 8-bit computer from Tandy, the Coco, and apparently also the Commodore 64, although I don't recall seeing anyone who was selling it in any of the stores here, namely because Commodore didn't actually have any Commodore stores. it was dependent on department stores or other individual computer stores selling it. But at least Tandy kept the CoCo alive till 1993, and there weren't very many 8-bit computers that were around, well, into the 90s, that's for sure. So as a rare segment, we are giving kudos and congratulations to Radio Shack.
All right. There we go. We got a dog on the show now. So there we go.
Hey, everybody else got their cats. I got my dog.
There we go. Excellent.
And that's all I've got for core dump. I've dumped everything.
Nick, I have a question for you. You remember that?
Fire away.
You remember that question I sent to you here about 3 weeks ago?
Ah, yes. Okay. All right. One more core dump.
This time it was counterclockwise for the Australian market.
It's going to be a new group.
Spinning the other way. That's right. Someone asked whether the high-res software routines that John Kowalski and I created for the CoCo 3, whereby you can have a high-res interface without having an actual high-res interface. Just the standard joystick plugged in and that's it, reading it as a high-res device. That works quite well on the CoCo 3, but someone asked if it could also be used on a CoCo 1 and 2 so that it could be put into CoCo Max on the CoCo 2. Now, we'd probably need John Kowalski here to actually answer it accurately, but as it is, the routine does require rely on the speed of the computer in order to be able to get all these extra sample points from the joystick. And the CoCo 3, of course, runs at 1.79 megahertz, which allowed it to try to get these extra samples in between samples. Now, that's on the CoCo 2, that's a bit difficult. It runs at half the speed, but because of John's brilliant routines in the way he was able to gather all this data from the joysticks at high speed and then collate all the data to create effectively, if I recall, it was a 15-bit sample value. I think the same routines might work reasonably well on the CoCo 1 and 2, even though it's not grabbing as much data. It'll get something. Because one thing I did notice was that when running the high-res software routines on the emulators, whereby you can't pull any additional data that's as the proper version does, the software averaging, the mathematics that John Kowalski has done, still fudges a reasonably accurate value, even on VCC or MAME, which doesn't actually give you all that extra data, which leads me to wonder that maybe on the CoCo 1 and 2 it would work. The other thing that you might be possible to do on a CoCo 1 and 2 is the CoCo 1 and 2 can be made to run at 1.79 megahertz. The problem is, of course, it loses video sync. But if you modify the routine so that it waits for a vertical sync, in other words, waits for it to have drawn the screen once, on the retrace, if it samples the joystick, increases the clock speed to a higher speed, does the joystick sampling during that blanking period, the period where it's lost video sync, and then store the value, restore the clock speed back to 0.89, so just in time for the video to be resynchronized, you can then start drawing the next frame again as if nothing happened. So in other words, it might be possible, and again, we need John Kowalski to verify that, but it may be possible to run the CoCo 1 and 2 at 1.79 megahertz during that blanking cycle to get a high-res readout from a joystick without any additional hardware. And then it would be nice to see CoCo Max patched, the original CoCo Max patched to use a software-only high-res interface. because currently the original Coco Max needs to have that high-res adapter plugged in, which also means you need to have a multi-pack and all that rubbish. So,
I think I have a version of that that's been cracked.
It's been cracked to use the high-res, one of the other high-res interfaces, isn't it?
No, not to use it without it.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it works.
All right. Send it to. Oh, is that the original Coco Max?
Yeah.
Not Coco Max 3?
No, Coco Max for Cocos 1 and 2.
And that gives you the full 256 by 192 resolution?
Yeah.
Or does it jump a bit?
Do you want me to put it up on my files?
Yeah, fire it up if you've got it. If you've got
well, wouldn't it be easier just to run Coco Max on a Coco 3 than trying to hack a Coco 2 to do it?
It's black and white.
On the Coco 3, you've got Coco Max 3, which is the color high-res version, of course. But yeah, I was just thinking to run the original Coco Max on a Coco 1 and 2, if you haven't got a high-res interface, you know, the program doesn't work. But
yeah, and I would think you could rewrite the routine not to be as precise either, because I mean, on the Coco 3 you need a resolution of 640 to address every pixel on the high-res screen. On a Coco 1 and 2 you only need 256, so the routine doesn't have to sample as much or oversample as much. So
That's
even
right,
the reduced clock speed might still work enough for that screen.
Well,
yeah, because it really only has to go from 6 bits to 8 bits to get all 256 pixels.
Yeah. Oh, the routine that John's got actually goes and samples up to 15 bits, and then it downsamples it down to what it needs to be. It needs to get that extra oversampling and to mathematically work out a more accurate value. That's how it somehow fudges it, and it works quite well. But yeah, Fron has that patch one. Is that patch one on the Coco archive?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, I got it here.
Oh, you got it? Oh, well. If we've got time, it'd be cool.
Yeah, I've never seen one that actually gives you the higher resolution without the...
Are you trying to pull it up on your screen to show us, Ron, or are you going to show us, what are you going to show us, the actual Coco or just a picture of it?
Sending it to the files section of Ron's garage.
Okay, so he's putting it on his Facebook page. Okay, so we can check that out later.
Well, put that up on the Facebook page, and we'll have a look later on. But yeah, that's about all the topics.
Okay, so Rob Inman is asking, could we get John Kowalski on as a guest? And yeah, we've had him. We've had him kind of unofficially a few times, and yeah, we should probably just reach out and ask him, Sock Master. The last time I think we really had him on was when we were talking about Donkey Kong Remix.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge too. Okay, let's talk about a couple of things before we wrap up today. And
the dump is over.
The dump is over. Okay, so we are going on 3.5 hours, so this is definitely a record show. But it's interesting. Like, you could have an hour show that feels like an eternity, and you're waiting to die, and then you could have a 3.5 hour show that's just been a freaking thrill ride, you know. And so this has been a fun 3.5 hours so far. So so last week, the episode, we had a little issue. When we say we had an issue, I had an issue, and so we had a great assembly language segment, part 3 in our series, and we started off with a pretty good segment on why BASIC sucks, right? BASIC is slow, it's interpretive, it's slow, it sucks. And then, you know, segment got a little long. My head was about ready to explode. And long story short, I rage quit the Skype call. I rage quit the episode. No warning. Well, a little bit of warning. I put out a little chat message saying, guys, wrap it up or I'm going to rage quit. And then I rage quit. And so the episode ended prematurely. And if you didn't see it live, you've missed it. And up until now, it hasn't been available, and we've been thinking about what to do to make it available. But before we do that, I just think it's probably worth showing this off right now. Our very own Ken Reichard has come up with a DEF CON rating right now. So when is Steve going to rage quit? Okay, here's DEF CON 5. We're at green. We're good. Okay, here's DEF CON 4. I'm getting a little bit yellow. All right, now we're going to DEF CON 3. I'm orange. DEFCON 2. It is red. DEFCON 1. All right, so this is going to be our meter that we're going to have to look at to see when my head is about to explode. So, so we have an episode that nobody has seen. And so I was trying to think of what's the best thing to do with this episode. And I think we've kind of talked about it offline, but we might as well talk about it online too. I think we're going to go ahead and decide to re-air the episode, but we're going to record a little bit more content because it didn't really end. We didn't end the segment, and there was no really closing to the show. So I think that's kind of the plan right now. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure.
so episode 66 right now is kind of like the lost episode. If you weren't there, you haven't seen it. But initially, I was just kind of not wanting to show it because I myself was just personally embarrassed over the way I handled it. You know, it was very unprofessional. I just said, screw this, I'm out of here. Hung up, walked out, and
Dropped the mic.
Dropped the mic, and I was out of here. So it wasn't fair to the audience. It wasn't fair to James and Curtis, who were deep in their discussions that was interesting to at least them two. And but yeah, I think the segment, maybe it went a little too long. It was too long for me anyways, and I couldn't handle it anymore, so my head exploded. So I think we're going to go ahead and re-air that because we do want to keep the assembly series going, and not everybody got to see it, so we want people to see part 3 of the assembly, and we're going to do that. But you might have also noticed too, because a bunch of stuff happened that day, like Skype changed that day, and the Skype update was really screwed up. So we've said screw Skype. We're not on Skype anymore. We've got a new platform, and I think it's been working out pretty well, right? We've tested it a bunch of times. We've done it live today. We've been beating on this thing for 3.5 hours today. It hasn't broken.
No.
I did like when I was in full screen how it automatically changed, kind of voice activated. So when somebody spoke, it just switched cameras. So it did that automatically. That's kind of a nice feature. I like how we can see people's names on here. So I can see Grant Leedy, I can see Curtis Boyle, Ron Klein. So yeah, I think our new platform now is exceeding my expectations on what Skype did, and so that's one less thing to be stressful for. But you know, I think we just have to find balance on how long should a segment run, when should we take a break. You know, like it was kind of, looking back, I'd say it's kind of like we probably shouldn't have had the assembly segment right up followed by an interpreter segment. It's like tech talk after tech talk. You know, it's just we need to be a little bit more proactive in how we plan the show. And if we're going to have more than one tech segment, we need to put something in between that's a little less technical, things like that. So I think some good things came from that post-mortem, right? But my initial thought was I didn't want to air the episode because I was embarrassed. But I'm over that. I don't care. I got no shame. But I also didn't want to air the episode if it was going to embarrass somebody else, because I kind of hung up in the middle of their segment. And I think everybody's okay with that, right? There's nobody's like feeling slighted or anything else. And so if we're all good and we're all warm and fuzzy, we're going to go ahead and I'll repost episode 66 with some bonus content and make it more like a full-fledged episode. So does that sound good for all parties concerned?
Sounds good.
Yeah. I think James had agreed to that too. James is no longer with us, so because yeah, I do want that assembly thing back up there. What else? What else do we need to say in conclusion today? Go ahead, Ron.
It went all south because I didn't show.
That's true. Ron wasn't here. Ron is the anchor.
I asked him on Facebook. So how did it go? He says you don't want to know. Talk to you later.
So Bruce is saying, can we clip the ultra tech portion? Can we clip it and do what? Clip it out or what? I think it just kind of needs to stand as it is. I mean, it just is. I don't want to alter history. I don't want to censor things. It is what it is, and we're going to put it in there and hopefully have a good laugh now looking back, but at least complete. Because I just felt mostly it was an incomplete episode, and I didn't want to post an incomplete episode. So we'll put some bookends on it to complete the episode, and we'll post it. Yeah.
One thing you got to add for me, Steve. You got those beautiful DEFCON pictures.
Yep.
Replace your icon on the bottom of you with those icon features.
Yeah.
Here and there, just so that we get the gauge of just how bad you were.
You can kind of tell by his facial expression too if you watch.
Yeah.
Down in the down the corner there.
And so a few people have copies of those videos too. So I'm looking to see what people are going to do with some humorous montages that might come from this. So I gave one to Brian Joyce, who is our master of entertainment.
2018 best of. Huh?
Yeah, I gave one to Roger Taylor. So if anybody wants a copy of just a segment of me having my head explode, I can give you a video copy of that if you want to do your own edits and remixes of that. It'd be kind of fun.
We just need a new bumper for a meltdown segment. We'll
yeah. So so hopefully we can record some value-added content to complete episode 66, and we'll get that posted too. But good show, guys, and thank you, Ron Klein, and you've been here the whole time. So thanks for being here, Ron. You're a trooper.
Well, no, you know what? Thank you. I know this was a long time coming, and I appreciate you guys all listening to me rant on about this and giving me the time to talk about it. So it was great to interact with everybody.
Yeah, I think it's a great project, and I just want people to know about it, myself included. Like, I need to understand it better, but I think other people need to understand it too, and hopefully I'll be able to show it off now too. So when I go to like my vintage computer clubs, I can show it off, and I can show off other things, you know. So like at VCF Midwest and things like that. So it's cool. Very, very cool. Any parting thoughts, I guess? Anything you want to say about what's going on in the community? What to think about next week? Or
I demoed a program from Simon, which is pretty awesome, but I can't say anything and I can't show it to you.
Okay.
It's coming. It's cool.
But you've seen something, so you've seen a peek.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a genius. He's working in the backgrounds, you know.
Yep.
Just let this blow your mind. Try this for me. So
yeah.
I tried it, you know, and I give it back, or I made a quick video for him, you know, and he's like, wow. I said, can I post it? Oh, no, not this one.
Okay.
No. So we'll see it later.
Cool. Something new to look forward to from the Madman.
Yes.
All right. So, Curtis Boyle, any parting thoughts before we start our closing ceremony?
Nope, nothing extra for me. I've been so busy with work, I haven't done much Coco stuff this last week. So
you did manage to shave, which is nice. So thank you for doing that.
Barely under the wire, but yeah.
Yeah.
Ron, but you're here.
Yeah. Ron Klein, any closing thoughts?
No, I thought it was a great episode, and you know, I like hearing people's feedback on this. So with this project, again, I encourage everybody to, you know, if they mess with it, to whatever changes they do, share it with the community so the rest of us can see what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Ron Delvaux, Timberman.
Yep. Thank you for having me back.
No, thanks for being here.
Yep.
It's not the same without you, as we've already experienced. So.
That's for sure.
Ron has that calming effect on Steve.
Yeah, he can't leave anymore. He's stuck here.
Man.
Nick Marentes, parting thoughts.
Nothing else. Just go take a dump.
Go, Diego, go. Any parting thoughts? You're muted, by the way. So.
Yeah, I mute the computer. I mute my mic. You know, I still keep getting the police cars coming around. This is the kind of neighborhood I live in. So that's it. Now just keep Cocoing, guys. Let's keep on it.
Excellent, excellent. And last but not least, Grant Leedy.
Do not forget about VCF Midwest coming up here in a couple months, and then Tandy Assembly coming up in November.
There you go.
We're in good shape.
All right, well, we're going to start the closing ceremony, so sit tight and get yourself some popcorn. We're going to begin the beginning of the closing ceremonies, but it's not over yet.
Don't rage quit.
This concludes another episode of CocoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things CocoTALK, visit us on the web at CocoTALK.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CocoTALK@CocoTALK.live. If you love the color computer like we do, then visit IMACoconut.com for all your color computer links needs. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, Visit the Patreon link on our site at CocoTalk.live. CocoTalk would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. Thanks go to Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Mark Overholzer, Grant Leedy, Bruce Moore, Nick Marentes, Ron Delvaux, Rick Adams, Jason Reichert, Richard Lorbieski, Jim Brain, Karen Anscombe, Simon Jonason, Wayne Campbell, Steve Batson, Brian Joyce, John Strong, and Barry Nelson. Special thanks to Steve Bjork for production suggestions and Brian Joyce for our best of episodes and bonus content. Please help support the Coco community by visiting some of its contributors. The Coco Crew podcast at cococrew.org. Glenside Color Computer Club, host of Coco Fest at glensideccc.com. Jim Brain and Retro Innovations at go4retro.com. Tandy Assembly at tandyassembly.com. Boyson Technologies at boysontech.com. Get your own switcheroo at cocoman.biz and Cloud9 Technologies at cloud9tech.com. CocoTalk is hosted by Steve Strobridge, co-hosts, technical directors, segment hosts, and producers Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Grant Leedy, Mark Overholzer, Ron Delvaux, and Jason Reichert. Production motivation, Steve Bjork. The CocoTalk theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Schalar. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. Coco forever, people. And let's not forget a very special thank you to Roger Taylor for getting us on the Coco TV channel on Roku. Brian Joyce says, hey, it's a great show, only it didn't end prematurely.
Yeah, it never does.
Of course, our patrons. Thank you to our patrons. All right, so that concludes the initial closing credits. We have to get to our post-closing credits here in just a minute. So Extructus is here. Hey, Brian Joyce in Australia. Good day. Nick's neighbor's here. Nick Marotta, I tried to make a few smartass comments. You did a pretty good job. So speaking of smartasses, let's acknowledge everybody who was in the live chat today. We had a full house today. So Tim Fadden was here, and Ken Can Make It, Disney Saints fan, and Diego, and Tim Franklin, Curtis Boyle, D. Bruce Moore, Moat 58, Tom C., Steve Bjork, Nick Marotta, and who else? Rick Adams and Tim Fadden, and Sean Ernst was here. Terry Steen was here. Paco Otakte, our very own David Ladd, was here. Mikey was here. Who else? Ken, Tim, Boyson Tech, that's Richard. Great announcement today on that 2 meg memory board too. Wayne Aaron was here. Hey Wayne. Nick Marotta, Tim Fadden. Yep, seen a lot of repeats now. Jim Gary was here. Hey Jim. And who else? Nick Marotta. We got Jason Bukata was here. He said, hi all, blast from the past. Hey Jason. Jason was also asking, does the CocoPi boot Nitrous 9? And I think Curtis answered that question. Jeff Arts was here. Thanks for being here, Jeff. Nice. Tim Franklin. Yeah, lots of people in the live chat. James Diffendaffer was here. He said I had to take off early. Nick Marotta. Okay, so we're caught up on the live chat. We peaked at somewhere around 30 viewers.
34 I saw.
Yeah, so we had a pretty good turnout today. Thank you all for being here. Obviously, it was a topic of interest, and hopefully we served you well with this information. Again, I want to thank all the panel who was here. Did I miss anything? Are we good?
No, I think we're good.
All right, so now it's time for the final credits before the post credits sequence.
Hi, this is Antonio Jimenez, author of such projects such as the Stevie Throw Devil and the SD Pack, and you are watching CocoTalk. 3, 2, go.
I'm behind you making faces.
Okay.
Do you have a script?
You're rolling, Curtis. You say whatever the hell you want to say.
Well, give me some kind of guideline.
Hi, this is Curtis Boyle.
Hey, this is Eric, and you're listening to CocoTalk.
All right, we're rolling. You say whatever you want to say, David.
Keep making faces at him.
Nation, world's leading weekly handy computer. Something like that.
Hi, I'm Tim. Playing Daggerith like that idiot from the book. You're watching CocoTalk.
Thank you, David. Now get back up there for 1 second.
Oh, jeez.
Come on.
What?
Let's get some DriveWire, TTL,
No,
ESP.
no, we don't need any DriveWire or TTL. Hi, it's Curtis Boyle, part of the CocoTALK crew of people.
Hi, we're on Delbo Timberman. To experience Coco Fest, you must come. Do you need this? I brought the only working MC10. I could not get. Couldn't get autograph. By certain someone you know. Oh well.
The world's leading weekly Coco Talk show. Yeah, something like that.
Hi, this is Rick Adams, and I'm the author of Temple of Brahm, Shanghai, and now Bomb Threat, and you're listening to Stevie Stroh on CocoTALK.
8-slot MPI, you know, floppy drive, Coco SDC, Sound Speech Pack, Orchestra 90, RS-232 pack, Modem pack, Super IDE. You start adding all those together if you want them all usable at the same time. Well, guess what? You just went over the 4-slot MPI.
There we go. And that's what the show is missing, too. Besides Ron Delvaux, we're missing our David Ladd. David is with us in our thoughts and prayers. He's not deceased or anything, but he's still in our thoughts and prayers. So David's got stuff going on. We can't wait for David to get back to where he can be on the show with us.
Hey, the reason I wasn't here last week was because I was with Paul Barton. We were playing on our Cocos in the house here, making trying to make a 8 megabyte board work. We got it working. We tested it and everything, but it wouldn't work with a floppy drive, so he's working on that.
Ah, cool. Oh, is that why you were asking Richard if his memory would work with a floppy drive? Yeah, because you guys tried it and it didn't work, right? Yeah.
It works with the SDC just fine.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Well, yeah, so we've done some testing this week with our new communications platform, and I think it works. So for those of you who notice, there's a few videos out there that say like live stream test that they're there. Oh, one more thing here. This is something I'm thinking about doing, and I've kind of already decided, but I'll just bounce it off you guys and I'll kind of inform you too. I'm thinking about moving the live streaming of this show back to my original channel of Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. I've been doing some thinking about these channels and how I've tried to split the channels up, and well, I have no problems or concerns with the Coco channel. I think because as we start to do more talk shows, which I hope we do, when we do things like Retro Talk and Geek Talk, I don't want to say, well, for this show, go to this site, and for this show, go to that site, and things like that. So I think when it comes to live content, I just want to have one distribution point for that. And so I'm thinking about moving it back to the other channel. Now, what I'll do is I'm just going to update the URL. So if anybody goes to the live.cocotalk.live that I've been distributing, it's just going to point to a different YouTube channel. And I'll post a message there too. But yeah, and then I will post the replays on the Coco channel. The replays will still live on the other channel too. So, but I don't know. I'm thinking I want to start going back to my other channel because I think I need to start building up some numbers there to keep it alive, or I'm going to lose all chance of being a YouTube partner and ever monetizing and things like that too. And that channel's getting grossly neglected, you know. So yeah, so this show gets a lot of views. You know, we get a couple hundred views a week, and you know, we get hours and hours of view time. So those numbers are going to help keep that other channel alive, because if I don't do anything to that channel, I'm going to lose it too, right? As far as, and not that it makes a lot of money, but I don't want to lose the option of ever making money, you know.
Yeah,
so
you're splitting it too thin right now. I think you're right.
So just with live content, like when I release a Coco video, I'll still release a Coco video to the Coco channel, but I want to just centralize all live shows. And I'll just update all the URLs for there. So that's going to take a small transition, but what I'll do next week if I make the switch is I'll have a little graphical thumbnail when you go there saying we've moved, you know, read the link below and it'll just link people over. So it may take a week or two for people to catch on, but that's just some behind the scenes thought process I've been going through with that.
Now, are we always going to go to, where are we going to find the link for this?
For the live show?
Yeah.
To watch it live?
Yeah, it's always going to be on
live.cocotalk.live.
Well, the web address, I created a generic web address that's called live.cocotalk.live, and that points to my actual YouTube page. I'm going to change which YouTube page it goes to. So if people are using the live.cocotalk.live, that'll just point to the new YouTube channel. or the old YouTube channel, I should say. I'll have links for it all, and I'll put it in Discord too. And by the way, too, for some of you who have not been on Discord this week, like Nick Marentes and Ron Delvo, we've had a lot of discussions going on. We've been talking about plans and changing software and stuff. So I know you guys are busy and you have your own lives, and that's your problem. But the rest of us are on Discord almost every day. So we're talking about plans for the show and stuff like that. So if you ever want to know what we're thinking or what we're going to do next, just check on the Discord throughout the week, a little bit more often, and we'll have stuff posted there too, which is all good. All right, guys, so we're going to wrap up CocoTalk episode 67, 3 hours and 48 minutes. Wow, we're going for another record, huh? This is making up for lost time from last week, right? So, cool. All right, thank you all, and we'll see you all on the next video. Thank you, everybody in the live stream. Goodbye.
Later, all.
And we'll see you later. Okay, ending live stream in 3, 2, 1.